Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this regularly scheduled December 9th meeting to order. We are down one commissioner. Commissioner Mazon can't make tonight. Commissioner Coleman will be here. He'll just be here a couple minutes late, so we'll welcome him when he gets there. After tonight's meeting, stay seated. We have another meeting for the Community Redevelopment Agency, which will, depending on how long this one goes, we may take a short recess. We may just go right into it. So with that, I have no additions or changes to the published agenda. Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none. Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Martin is going to come down to the podium and give tonight's invocation. I'd ask if you would please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will follow directly. Mr. Martin.
Let's bow our heads. Lord, we come to you with a very heavy heart tonight. Our community has been hit with a series of tragedies. We've lost Patrick Treeses of the high school's mom, Gretchen Miller, and his aunt, Tammy McCracken. We lost Uncle Bobby Holder, and last night news came that we lost number 22, Malachi Lancaster. We know the wounds of these losses will heal, but the scars remain on our hearts forever. Please watch over these families in our community at our time of need. We take comfort in knowing your hand is at work, though we may not understand, we believe. It is hard to see the light in the darkness. We only need to turn to you. Matthew 5:14 through 16, you are the light of the world. The city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Thank you for the blessing of this great community and wonderful beginning of celebrating the birth of your son, Jesus, with our tree lighting and festival this weekend. We ask your blessing in the coming days and weeks ahead as we bring glory to you and pay respect to his sacrifice for our sins. We ask your blessing upon our travels this holiday season, the time we will have with our family and loved ones. May we keep you at the center of it all. As we prepare our hearts for tonight's meeting, I ask your blessings once again upon all of us present. We pray this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. If you'll join and become Commissioner Martin again, we appreciate it. Thank you for that invocation. It was beautiful. We're going to go ahead and move into our presentations. First one is a road maintenance assessment program. Dallas, are you taking that?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. As you may recall, during our budget process over the summer, we discussed a road maintenance assessment program, or a road maintenance capital improvement program. It'd be similar to your fire assessment you could levy every year to help fund road projects throughout the city. At that time, the Commission expressed interest in learning more about a road maintenance program or an assessment program. So with us tonight, we have Peter Napoli from Stantec, who is going to present to the Commission a high-level overview over how a road maintenance program would work. And we seek direction to see if the Commission would be interested in us taking the next steps.
Thank you for that.
With that, I'll turn it over to Peter.
And as he's making his way down, I just want to make sure that we don't get confused. We have two road conversations happening. One is a potential for a referendum, which would be a capital outlay to chip seal, to pave. That's a referendum. This is an assessment for long-term maintenance. Once you have it, how do you take care of it after that kind of a thing. So two conversations related, but don't want to get them mixed up or confused. Peter, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Yeah.
Welcome to Newberry.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for having me here tonight to speak to you about this. The city engaged me a few months ago with interest in a potential road maintenance assessment. Dallas was familiar with my work with some other cities throughout the state. I specialize in special assessments, impact fees, utility rates, et cetera. And I worked for Alachua County. I managed their fire assessment program, and I've helped Lake City with their stormwater assessment program. particularly with road maintenance. I work for a city down in Southwest Florida, city of Northport. They have a road maintenance assessment that is very successful for providing funding for ongoing annual road maintenance. And today's kind of just a brief presentation, a high-level overview of what it could look like. It's really just from a feasibility standpoint, so just caution you, all the numbers are very preliminary in nature. And with that, I'll get into it. So I was just told that you guys do have an active fire assessment program, so you have some familiarity with special assessments, how they work. This first slide here is just kind of an overview of special assessments and how you can use them in the state. They're a funding solution for local governments. You could fund part or all of a certain service, depending on what it is and depending on what works best for the city. It kind of works off of 100% cost recovery. You can go up to that, but you can't go above that. The legal requirements, and it looks like, there they are. The legal requirements can kind of be summarized with this, what we refer to as the two-prong test. There has to be a special benefit conferred amongst the properties that would be assessed. So they have to benefit from this service that the city's providing or capital improvement that the city is providing. And then it has to be fairly and reasonably apportioned. There has to be some kind of methodology behind how you're distributing the costs amongst the properties in the city. The administration, there are two options for collection, although the first one is pretty rare. You can direct bill these special assessments and collect them on your own, but the administrative burden of that is pretty heavy. So most cities, counties, they use the uniform method, which puts places the responsibility on the tax collector, and it appears on the annual tax bill along with property taxes. And then also there is a requirement for a new assessment. First, you start with a resolution of intent, and that's typically adopted by the deadline January 1st or December 31st. The June 1st timeline is when the property data is released from the property appraiser. That property data is used as the basis for the assessment program, and then September 15th is the deadline to provide the final tax roll once you go forward with adopting an assessment program.
Can
Yes,
you
sir.
take questions in the middle?
Oh, no, absolutely. I'd be happy to.
What is the special benefit for a road?
So the special benefit for roads.
Give me for example.
So for example, without the availability of roads, it would be harder to transport, goods and services around the city, visit businesses, leave your home. There's a safety benefit, roads being maintained and safe for transport. The kicker here with the roads is that it has to be the roads that everybody uses. So the major roads, the collectors and arterials. If you're specifically working on local roads that only benefit a certain neighborhood, but then you spread the cost out amongst the property owners in the city.
We can't just do the road to your house.
Yeah,
Presents your question.
that presents a
I live
challenge.
on the county road.
Exactly. There are though capital assessments, special assessments where you do projects like that. Say a neighborhood says we want our roads repaved, and then you just take that collection of households that benefit from that specific repaving, and then they would pay the assessment.
Right.
But a citywide assessment program would have to deal with the collectors and arterials. So the benefit is that without the roads, it'd be harder to visit businesses, harder to leave your house, harder to do business, and also the safety aspect of it.
I have one side question here to my city manager. So Jamie's not here, so I normally would ask him. But if that's the definition, what would count in Newberry? What roads will we have? Because every arterial road that I can think of belongs to the county or the state. I mean, 30th could be. We want that to become, but
30th is 40.
microphone. 46.
Yes, 15th, 30th, 46th, both north and south.
Those could count.
Those are intended to be collector roads. It says so in our comp plan. And maybe Newberry Lane.
Okay. John, I appreciate it. Just checking to make sure it was worth continuing with the presentation. All right, go ahead.
Sure, okay. The next slide here just kind of details what the process is for calculating these assessments. It starts with the property analysis, so you identify which properties benefit. If it was a, localized neighborhood that was benefiting, that would only deal with those properties. If it's a citywide, you take the whole city and all of the properties that could benefit. There's certain properties you strip out that are kind of those in-between unaccessible properties, right-of-ways, drainage ditches. There's all types of properties in the property database maintained from the county. Vacant properties would be another one that typically those are excluded from road type assessments because they don't really add traffic to the road, although there is some indirect benefit from the ability to develop that land because there's roads. However, we're focusing on the direct benefit here that's most defensible. The revenue requirement is identifying what costs would be funded with this program. So is it, what's the budget for maintenance on these particular roads? And then the allocation is how you separate the cost out between the properties that are benefiting.
Now, when you think about it, is the revenue requirements to maintain, but we're not talking about building a road. We have an impact fee to build a road.
Mhm.
So we have an impact fee to build a road.
Yeah.
But what if it's a chip sealed road now that's going to become a paved road? Can the assessment help pay from chip seal to pavement, or can it just assess how much it costs to maintain a chip sealed? The impact has to pay to make it a paved road, but then once it becomes paved road, it falls into a different category. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. And I would argue that the capital component of upgrading that road could be included, since it's one of those roads that we just listed off that are, citywide benefit for all properties, ingress and egress. So I would argue that that capital component could be included if it was the commission's desire. So.
Okay.
And then the ultimate fee calculation is essentially taking those properties, the amount that you want to generate with the assessment program, dividing it amongst those properties using your allocation method. So this is just, a high-level calculation that we did for the city. I had the property data already because I work with Alachua County, so I separated out the Newberry properties. There's 3,000 residential properties, 883 non-residential properties that would be excluded. There's only 60 of them. Governmental properties would also be excluded. You can't assess governmental properties. And then there's 542 vacant properties. So out of the highlighted in orange, the assessable properties in this case, there are, from the residential standpoint, we looked at this on a parcel basis, so the number is equal there, but on the non-residential side, what we looked at was the square footage. So this kind of goes back to the transportation engineer's manual. Basically, their generation of traffic and use of the road correlates to the size of the building. So the larger the building, the more share they would be charged for every 1,000 square feet. Under this very simple methodology here, you could go in and start separating out industrial from commercial.
This is a for example methodology.
Exactly. Yeah, you can get more specific, but so out of the non-residential properties, that represents about 1.5 million square feet. So 1,595,000 square feet units. The capital cost that we included in here was $1 million annually. Maintenance was $250,000, and then there's the ability to gross up for the costs that are inherent in the program. There's usually a tax collector charge of 2%, and you probably pay something like that for the fire assessment, and then there's a 4% early payment discount with taxes that you're allowed to include in the assessment costs. So the calculation, if we took those units that I identified between residential and non-residential, spread out that 1.3 million annual costs. On the residential side, the allocation would be per parcel. Non-residential would be per 1,000 square feet. The sample assessment here for this, revenue target would be about $278 per residential parcel annually, and then $278 per 1,000 square feet on the non-residential side. So then this just gives you a quick sample of a single-family home would pay annually $278, which is $23 a month, and say For example, a 5,000 square foot hardware store would pay about $1,400 annually, which equates to $115 per month. Then we looked at another scenario where you just funded that maintenance portion of the cost, $250,000 a year that it would generate for the city. It'd be a $56 annual bill for single-family homes, and it'd be a $278 bill for this sample commercial property.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes, sir.
And the $1 million and the 250 is just a random number for demonstration
Generally,
purposes, right?
yes. Yeah, and obviously you can't just pick any number. When we would do the full study for the city, you'd have to, support that with a budget and a plan for the spending of that program.
Remember is it next Monday? Next Monday, we're having the workshop on the referendum. In that idea, it's a millage rate, so it's property taxes. How do you do the same thing? So what we want to do tonight is compare these rough numbers with the rough numbers. I think the numbers on Monday will be a little bit less rough. I think we have actual costs there. But there's just two different methodologies. And what I'm hearing tonight is this methodology potentially could be used for capital outlay as well as maintenance. My understanding at first was that this was a maintenance, the referendum was a capital. We might have the ability to do a mixture. When we first came into the fire assessment 20 years ago, that assessment said you could charge $350, and I think the commission went at 25, right, Monty? Started at 25?
It started at 25.
Started at 25. Yeah.
I don't remember there was a set amount that it could be at that time.
Yeah.
But I think the commission Matt started at 20 and said that it could only go for 25, or it could only go $25
Every year. So I would assume the same thing. Let's just say that those numbers were accurate. 273 was the max. That doesn't mean the commission has to charge 273.
Exactly.
That just means that's what they could charge
Yeah.
once you have this study that says that there is a public benefit, special needs, those kinds of things. Is that everybody clear on that? I just want to make sure, because on Monday, we're going to be having a very similar conversation. I don't want to get mixed up on which one is which. Go ahead.
No, and this last slide here just kind of details the next steps. If you were considering adoption for next tax year, you'd have to adopt a resolution of intent. Of course, there's workarounds with that. A lot of times I've worked with clients where they miss that deadline and the county gives them grants them an exception for a later date, but then you would have to undergo the process of the formal methodology report where we would detail the assessment calculations. We would generate a preliminary assessment roll. You'd send out letters to all the affected property owners. This is what your assessment could be. The commission is deciding on this on X date, the public hearing, and then finally you would have to submit that final tax roll.
We're not doing a resolution of intent by December 24th, but because this right now is kind of a concept. What are the options out there? Do you do the resolution of intent before we know for sure what those numbers are? Because I'm assuming the real next step would be to hire you to do the study to say, 15th is, 30th is. I tried real hard, but Newberry Lane, I can't make that one, right? And then we'd actually be looking at what are the capital costs, because my mind is $1 million a mile still roughly what we're projecting to pave a road?
No.
$2 million a mile?
Close.
$2 million a mile, right? So if you only do $1 billion, that means you're paving 1 mile of road at a time, right? So do we have to have the resolution in order to warrant hiring him to do the actual study to know what the real numbers are?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. The resolution of intent, you actually adopted one at your last meeting for your stormwater assessment. The
Okay.
resolution of intent is just telling the tax collector that you intend to use the tax bill as a
Okay.
methodology of
That's
collection.
right.
But
There's no commitment.
there's no commitment.
Right.
So-
Okay.
And our plan is that the commission wanted us to, you'd obviously direct us to engage Ms. Napoli this year, but we'd probably bring it back as a budget item, see if you wanted to budget for the study
Yeah.
next year.
I'm sorry, I thought this was a more entailed resolution of intent, like, no, we are going to go do this one. That one's not happening by December 24th. Christmas Eve, vote. Okay. Is this your last slide? No?
Yeah, that's all I got for you. Just another reminder that those numbers were totally preliminary, and
Okay.
we'd have to do a more in-depth study if the city was interested, but.
Okay. Commissioner Barton, were you reaching for the microphone? No? Okay, so what I would suggest is, I appreciate that. If anybody has any questions, we'll ask them now. Otherwise, we'll have the next meeting on Monday. Let's get the information for both of these possibilities. Then we'll tell staff whether we want to move forward. We want to move forward on both, and then see if we want to do a blending, how we want to proceed from here. All right? Anybody have any questions for Peter? No? Thank you so much for your time, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Yep.
Very helpful. All right, that's going to move us to item 2, which is a funding plan update for wastewater treatment facility for new growth, new development. Mike, you taking this one? This is the meeting we had with developers last week. Okay.
Yeah, just give the commission a little bit of an update about that meeting. It was really well attended. We had it last Tuesday afternoon, and I'd say the majority, maybe 90% of the developers in Newberry attended. We had our engineering consulting team on hand. They gave this presentation. They prepared this presentation. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through it real quick to keep you up to speed with what we're talking to the development community about. Man, oh man, that is much different.
That's not size 18 font,
That,
I'm trying. I
That is
got
not.
B. There's an E on that page. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
yeah, I have no idea, Mr. Mayor. I spent a couple hours on this thing.
It's a Google slide ghost. It happens to my students all the time. Yeah.
So these are the items that we're going to speak to.
Right?
Just kind of an agenda of what's going on. And I added 3 or 4 slides, so I hope they're still in here. Just maybe the font doesn't like the font. So just for things that should be regurgitation for the commission is, our existing wastewater plant doesn't have available capacity to take us into the future. We're right now hitting that point where we have allocated all of the capacity to some development that wants to move forward. We have just a few gallons per day to play with. And we are being required to enhance our treatment technology through our permit and through an administrative order that we've received from FDEP. So the city is willing to own, operate, and maintain the wastewater plant for new growth. And planning for growth, it seems obvious. I think that Newberry has a special kind of growth that makes it more of a challenge in Newberry than it might be with most communities in the state of Florida. But the state of Florida, who is our lender, has said you have to secure the revenue from developers. We're not going to allow you to build excess capacity for development without securing that revenue, because they went through a bad time in 2008 when the economy slowed down and apparently communities got put in a little bit of a pinch. And so the lender has decided we're not going to let that happen again. We won't pledge revenue from developers in the form of agreements that say that we're going to buy this many shares of a wastewater plant, and we're going to make a periodic payment. Maybe it's a one-time payment, maybe it's a few payments over the period of 6 months, or maybe it's one payment a year for 10 years.
Mike, can you update me and the commission and the public? Because for a while there, we were at 100% at our current on paper, but we knew that we had capacity there in reality. Is that no longer the case? Are we 100% in reality, 100% on paper?
No, we are 50% in reality. Our flows into the plant are about half of our capacity, but the development, the plats that we've approved and the construction plans that we have approved take up the balance. And like I said, there's a few hairs to be split right now. We're not at a complete moratorium, but it's getting tight.
Yeah.
And at our current growth rate, we won't reach capacity, which is round numbers, 200 building permits a year. We still have 4 years before we would reach capacity at our current growth rate. So when we had this meeting, we spoke, and we have been doing this for better than 6 months and a year, asking the building community to understand that we need to dial in on no more than 200 building permits a year, and if they can adjust their construction schedules and we can allocate out the funds, we should be just fine, getting a wastewater plant funded and getting it constructed in plenty of time for new capacity. So their developer capacity reservation payment options, we worked with our consultant and came up with a couple of different payment options, but by no means is that exhaustive. So we kind of kicked them out to get the wheels turning about what we could do, and we asked developers to give us comment on, something that might work better, because there's 1,000 different scenarios, and the ones that suit them best, as far as we can tell, if it passes muster with DEP, we're going to do it. And then a timeline for the new wastewater plant. So our permitted capacity is 0.56 MGD. You hear me and Jamie say 600,000 gallons all the time. That's just rounding on our part. We're fully allocated. We're planning a 1.2 million gallon per day facility, which is about twice our current capacity.
And just so I keep this straight for the public, so we have a roughly 600,000 gallon facility now,
Today,
and that 600,000 facility is 100% full with current usage and what the commission has entitled.
that is correct.
We could build an advanced treatment 600,000 gallon facility, and that's already funded.
That's already
We could do
funded.
that. We could start that tomorrow.
We can start that
So the
tomorrow.
question that we're talking about now is the other 600,000 that we want to build to handle the growth that is coming.
Correct.
Is that right?
That's
Okay.
exactly on point. So,
Hang on a second,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Barton.
Mr. Mayor, we had talked, and I sat with the presentation, and there was a question, and now that we are sitting here, which I didn't hear nothing back, and then we can do it right now, is if the current capacity that's been taken from all these developers, and now we sit here basically with a gun to our head to fund this thing and get going. And I think legal is the one that we would have had to ask. I didn't hear nothing back about it, but can we legally go back and tell them they ain't built nothing in 20 years and take their stuff off the rolls?
So your question is, if somebody came here 20 years ago and said, I'm building 1,000 houses, right?
Yep.
And we gave them entitlements, could we take those entitlements
Yep.
just for the
For the
wastewater
sake of
capacity?
sure, yes. So
Do we have anybody that scenario would fit, Mike? Before we even ask the legal question?
no, sir, we do not.
Because you don't get
Because-
capacity until you plat.
Look at there, ding, ding, ding. That is correct. And typically, when you get entitlements, when you get through the zoning phase, and you do get a lot of entitlements, but you don't get wastewater plant entitlements at the zoning phase. You get wastewater plant entitlements at one of two phases. For residential, it's at plat, and for non-residential, it is at construction plan approval. So it is very late in the game, and we don't have any plats that got approved and entitled a bunch of capacity, tied up a bunch of capacity, and then they never moved
Except for
forward.
the RV park and that capacity rolled back
Already
to
come
us.
back.
What's the development around Champions Park, Sandia Park?
Sandia.
Does that have any capacity?
It
Because
does not.
we haven't seen a plat. So
Not
there's
today.
2,400 units
What
that
about the one
don't
on
have any
30?
capacity.
Nothing on that one, Ed?
That's Sandia, and
No,
they're-
the east side of the road.
no, sir.
No,
That
no
one,
capacity?
they've got zoning entitlements, but no wastewater capacity entitlements. It's Avalon Woods is taking it up, Countryway South. Those are the projects that you
But
guys have approved.
they're building.
Yeah, Publix, Gromax, those types of the projects. We know them all, we know, and they're moving forward.
So right now, if we decide we're just building a 600,000 facility that's advanced treatment to meet state regulations,
Yes, sir.
Sandia Park has entitlements to build, but they can't build one house, right? Is that fair? Sandia Park couldn't build one house around Champions Park because we don't have any capacity left on paper to serve them.
In round numbers.
In round numbers.
And you're gonna consider a plat tonight. Staff recommends that you approve it. I think it's 39 or 40 lots.
Yeah, I think
We have 40 lots, and we plan to approve that. And as, we don't have 500, there's no 500 lot plats that are coming in that we.
That's why I
can
was thinking
squeeze
about
that.
Sandia Park, 'cause that one's 2,400, right? Houses,
Yes.
apartments, all kind of.
Sandia's 2,400. And Mr. Mayor, I'll tell you something, once we get all this figured out and DEP gives us authorization to proceed, they know that the plant is imminent, then they'll let us go with the 200 building permits a year. You just monitor your flows and you'll have to stop issuing building permits when you reach that magic number.
So the ranch has entitlements, but not a plat. So there's no capacity right now at 600,000. But even the other 600,000 doesn't get us through Sandia and the ranch by itself.
Correct.
Right.
But the ranch is a 50-year build-out, and we plan wastewater plant expansions generally on a 20-year build-out. And, you know, that can float. I mean, this plant could be at capacity if we continue like we have. It could be approaching capacity in 15 years, or if we have a pretty good economic slowdown, we could push that to 30 years. I did a similar project in a little city a little north of us, and we finished the project around 2012, and they're nowhere near capacity. They have not been growing at the pace that would eat up that capacity.
Okay.
So, man, I'm really sorry about this. So
Well, you're the
SR
one having to struggle,
funding requirements. So the capacity, there's three allocations in our treatment plant. There's our existing customers, which is about 300,000 gallons per day, or 25% of the new capacity. Then there is Archer, which is 175,000 gallons per day, or about 15% of the new capacity. And the balance is 60% of the new capacity, 725,000 gallons per day allocated for new development, and FDEP wants that secured. So this is just a table. So one of the slides I created is on here that just shows the SRF funding that we've obtained to date. And I'll send, well, you have the presentation in front of you. So it shows that we have 27 million round numbers in hand, but that includes 14 million from Archer. So we've got in hand 14 million for our wastewater plant expansion, and we are within striking distance that we can move tomorrow.
And Mike, bless you. I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but out of the 175,000 that Archer needs, how much of that is their current need versus their plan for growth? Is all 175,000 Archer growing, or is
that 175,000? If they hook up all of their septic tanks, immediately gets taken.
Okay.
Now, what I hear from Archer that they're planning to do is probably convert 300 septic tanks immediately and hold back 300 septic tanks for new growth and development, and then do it all over again. But that's what their consultant tells me is kind of their plan moving forward.
And I've fielded a lot of questions from the community about Archer, so I just go ahead, and the questions have been, well, if it's too expensive, just cut out Archer. And I have a couple of responses to that. One, we have a contract with Archer. We signed the contract, so we've already made that agreement. Archer and Newberry's partnership has been really beneficial in getting the $29 million of grants that we've been able to secure, because a regional facility is a lot different than just one city asking. And what was my third point about it? Oh, and it would end up costing us money. I don't know what it would be, but we would have to redesign, right? So it'd be some amount of money to take our 1.2 down to a 1 or an 800,000. So I mean, it still is a possibility. Archer has to secure their funding, which is, I'm sure, on the managers.
If Archer is not included in our project, it doesn't change the 700 gallons that are set aside for new growth that is not secured. It just reduces the total cost. Archer's bringing their money to the table.
They're paying their 15% up.
They're paying their 15% out front. So Archer being in the program or not doesn't really address what staff's been working on for the last 6 months. And that's probably something important to tell the commission. Our construction plans have been ready for 6 months, and DEP's happy with them. DEP won't move us forward. We have to get authorized to incur cost because we have 700,000 gallons per day, or 60% of the plant capacity is unsecured. And they said, we're not going to authorize you for funding until you secure that. So for the last 6 months, our consultants, Woodard and Curran, and Jamie and Dallas have been furiously trying to figure out how do we secure that. What we've come up with, these development agreements, is our best plan. But if we find another way, we have a $49 million grant application out there. If that comes home, that goes a long ways towards securing the remain outstanding, and it gets to be a much lower bar. But we're not counting on that. DEP has advised us not to count on that because DEP says we don't give grants for new growth, and we know that what's unfunded in the Newberry project is new growth. So don't count on this grant. Now we're still hoping, but they have advised us don't count on that grant coming through.
Okay, let me ask you. I apologize, but so what is the amount over what's being used today that Tallahassee would fund? 60. We have a 60%. That's about our growth. They won't fund that. Would they fund 20% over? 30%?
We think 20% is the right number. If you were just any town USA, they would expect you to add 10 to 20% of additional capacity because they know you don't want to run out of capacity tomorrow. The fact that we need 60% to handle all of our growth makes Newberry very unique, and it didn't occur to me how unique we were until I was talking with DEP staff. We've been seeing this growth for the whole 10 years I've been here. It's normal for us, and you get up and talk to DEP, and they act like you're a big albatross, and they don't even trust that we're right in our projections. And I'm like, well, this is an ambitious projection. We got development agreements with all these people. They're going to do this, and it's a pace that we sustained for the last 10 years.
So, Mike, my brain, if you say to me that Tallahassee expects a 20% over and we're asking for 60 and they want us to secure debt for 60, my response would be, well, why do we have to secure debt for 60? Why don't we have to secure debt for 40?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think like you, but I don't know that necessarily is going to pass muster. But since we know we have to at least get coverage for 40, we're going to have to.
We still have the same conversation, but it's a different bar we're trying to hit.
We're going to have them in hand when we walk in and say, hey, we've got all of it but 20% that you would likely fund anyway. Can we move forward?
Okay, I'll stop interrupting your presentation.
And Mr. Mayor, this right here just shows the allocations of existing customers versus Archer versus new development and how we allocate the projected cost. And that we've got $15 million secured for Newberry, and we think we're about 21.8 debt service on that difference is not an issue for us. The DEP is happy for us to move forward with that. Proposed solutions this is just, we're developing a guaranteed payment of system development charges. You know that we have wastewater development charges. We just raised them over the summertime. They went from about $4,100 a lot to an interim step of $7,000 a lot, and then the next step of $10,500. So what DEP said that they would be happy with is if you get an agreement that guarantees developers will pay those funds on an annual basis regardless of the economy. So we have been working to develop agreement forms that where the developers commit to making the debt service payments. They'll get the entitlements, they'll get the allotments, and they'll reserve that capacity. But it's the way the game is being played in 2024, and I would tell you that it hasn't been played this way before. Although our consultants say, Mike, it should have been played this way. The rules haven't changed. It's the people that are laying out the rules are paying more attention to them, and Newberry's bearing the brunt of that. With this allocation, we currently expect to finish our plant in late 2026 or somewhere in the first half of 2027 on our current schedule. So the proposed updates to developers agreement, most of these developers already have developers agreements, so the language that we've drafted would be an amendment, an addendum to those development agreements. We clarify how and when the fees are paid. It strengthens our guaranteed revenue stream, which we'll take these agreements to Tallahassee and say, here's our pledged revenue. Tallahassee has seen them on first blow, and on first blow, they're giving us a thumbs up. They are going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and we should know something by the end of December on what they're saying about this. It allows capacity to be reserved, so if you pay the money or you pledge to pay the money, you reserve the capacity, and it sets a time frame for those capacity reservation. All the things you would see in a normal agreement of this. If you're going to pay for capacity, we're going to make sure you have guarantees for that capacity. We offered 3 options, and so one is just pay in full up front, write us a check, and that works. That's the most straightforward for staff. We love it, but a lot of development isn't interested in pursuing that, so we developed payment option 2, where you pay 25% up front and 20% every 60 days until you get it up to 85%, and then the balance due whenever you get an approved point of connection. So whenever we get to that plat process and it's finalized, that's when you'd be paying the final. Yes, sir.
So in this one, 25% for that, because most of the police people that come in front of us are in phases.
Mhm.
So is it
Per phase.
per phase? So
And-
if I'm doing 100 houses in this phase, but I'm doing 4,500 overall, I'm not paying 25% of 4,500. I'm paying 40.
It could work either way, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
It could work either
Well,
way.
I know we'll take
Most-
more money.
Most of the developments we're talking comprehensive. They
Okay.
just want to get it all taken care of, do it one time. But we're not telling them which way to do it. If you pay for one house, that's what your reservation is. If you pay for 1,000 houses, that's what your reservation is. And you just made it easy on the rest of us. And then the third option, which seems to be the most popular, you commit and you'll make 10 annual payments, 10% of the total over a 10-year period. And you secure that with some sort of surety device, a performance bond or some type of bond. Secures that, we turn all that into DEP, get a thumbs up, and then we begin construction.
Mike, I'm not that smart. Go back to number 3 here. Take me through this like I'm not a developer. So I come in here and I want to build 500 houses, and I think it's going to take me 10 years.
That's easy, Mr. Mayor, because you're not a developer. But no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, if you want to reserve capacity for
500 houses.
500 homes.
I think it's going to take me 10 years.
And-
Under this option, what am I paying?
You're paying for 50 homes a year for 10 years. And it doesn't matter the rate you build them. You can
Okay.
build them at a faster rate than 50 homes a year. We just have to have the pledge revenue.
So under this one, I'm building 50 homes a year, and I can pay just the 50 homes a year
Correct,
as a one lump sum payment?
correct. What's anticipated.
But that's the 10%.
That's the
That's 10%
10%.
of the overall project. So if I was going to build 1,000 homes over 20 years, same
Still got to do it 10
Same
years.
thing. It has to be on a 10-year basis, 10 years as far as we can go?
Well, I mean, it's our agreement, but debt service goes 20-year. So we're trying to not get it so strung out, because one of the things that in this agreement is they lock in the rate. So as the commission increases our water and wastewater capacity
They
fees,
get wherever they
then that's an incentive to lock them in now. But I don't know that the commission, 20 years is a pretty good long time. 10 years kind of got us to the edge of our staff, to the edge of our comfort zone.
Gotcha. Okay.
And but we are soliciting feedback, and someone may come with that. I'd tell you, one of the comments we got was, what if you get the $50 million grant and you're not trying to come up with $52 million worth of debt service, you're only coming up with $8 or $10 million worth of debt service. Would you reduce the capacity fees? And I said, we'll put that in a comment, because one, staff doesn't have the authority to reduce capacity fees, and staff would present it to the commission. Knowing this commission, they probably would reduce them, but I would say that staff's recommendation is, if we do something like that, is that we still don't go down to dollar for dollar, because today I read today that we set our capacity fees in 2007, and we didn't touch them until 2024. Or 2023 is actually when we touched them. And, you know, at the end of the day, you do the math to pay dollar per dollar of what treatment plant capacity is, but it just never works out that way. So what we know as staff is that every time we collect those fees and in accumulation, one, we spend them on other things. It's not just a wastewater plant expansion. It's that force main that needs to get built. It's that master pump station that needs to get built. There's other things that come into play. But if we've got a good down payment, you know, if we don't have to have 100% to expand our next plant, but we probably need to have a good 50% of it. And so if we reduce those and it gets included in those agreements, you can bet that staff is going to advocate with don't go from what is currently 10.5 all the way back to 4,000 just because we got a grant, because grants are never guaranteed. We may never get another one. So let's cut it in half the difference and maybe go back to 7,500. And then staff will always recommend that we do a cost of living adjustment on capacity fees as we move forward, so that, you know, I think we increased them by close to 100% in 2024. And I think that the commission and the community would rather us increase them 1 to 3% annually than 100% every 15 years. It's sticker shock. So the final slide, I think it's, well, we got one more. But this is just kind of the roadmap. On the near term, we're trying to get these agreements finalized. We're getting comments back from the development community. We're getting them to the attorney's team, the legal team that's working on it. And we're incorporating them into the documents and then getting that to DEP so they can look at them and say, yeah, we can live with this. We'll get the master agreement from the commission so that you guys are familiar with what's in there. Then each agreement will be individual with the developers. One of the things I've observed is the development community has been working together. So they've been pooling their resources to hire one legal team to look at them. I think makes it easy. We don't get comments back from 6 different sets of attorneys. We get 1 or 2 sets of attorneys giving us comments back. But the development community has been really proactive. They understand we're trying to get these approvable the first week in January. That is our goal. I'm not saying we'll have to get there.
Approvable from this dais
Yes.
or approval from Tallahassee?
Both. We'll if we can get them executable, we're going to send them to Tallahassee and ask to be on the February hearing for funding. If we miss the February hearing for funding, the very next opportunity is in May. So we are working like the devil, as they say, to get on the February hearing, get these approved and on the February hearing so that we can get out of this land of we can't approve a 200 lot plat right now. We'll have to wait until we get approved for construction and we put it out for bid, then DEP will cut us loose again.
We're also assisting Archer to make sure that Archer is also on the February plan for funding.
Correct.
We have to run on parallel tracks.
That is
If
correct.
Archer doesn't get it in February and we do, that's the time the commission has to then make a decision about, are we moving forward with Archer, or are we downsizing just for Newberry? Is that right? Is that fair?
Correct. And if we downsize for just Newberry, it's going to take a redesign effort. So the design that we have is going to go back to the engineers, and they're going to reduce the size of everything theoretically by 15%. Or it may be easier to figure out how can we come up with the 15% in funding, and instead of 60% of new development capacity, we have 75%. But we are working to get Archer on the same schedule as us, and we are taking a field trip next Wednesday to meet with FDEP and make certain that they understand that if they approve one without the other, no one moves forward because they're dependent upon funding. So if Archer gets approved and we don't, they don't move forward, and vice versa.
And Archer's part of that field trip?
Archer's mayor and interim city manager are traveling with us. We've got 2 consultant teams up there that are making those introductions. We're meeting with both the governor's staff and DEP staff to communicate that message.
And Tallahassee really likes to help Archer, so I'm hoping that they carry that trend right on through. Because at this point, it seems like it would be easier for them to help Archer a little more. Maybe they buy Archer's capacity and they figure out how to help Archer in the future.
That's a stroke of genius. We're going to write that one down.
Okay, questions? Commissioner, you have anything else, Mike? Commissioner Coleman has,
I wrote down some here. We kind of need a scale to judge our ability to pay. And that's my first question is, what is the limit that we can afford? I want to know that.
I've been hearing that question a lot, and I think part of the issue is that we've been saying 90, and what we mean when we say 90 is all of the engineering, design, plan, like the total, and then that gets confused with actual construction cost. But I've been, I've had people say, is there a limit? Like if staff comes back and says it's 100 million, are we paying 100 million, or is there a place we top out?
We think that the bids are going to come in between 65 and 75 million.
Construction.
Yeah, that's what the construction bids are going to come in. Then we've got, what we've spent on design, and we'll have a continued relationship with the engineering firm as we go through construction. So right now, our current estimates are about 88 million for all cost in. We've spent $8 million. Our ratepayers have pledged $8 million. We haven't done anything with it. The state hasn't started our loan yet, but we have borrowed it from the state, and we have paid people to perform this work, and the state is just holding our loan until it is complete. And so we will, we'll roll up whatever the total finance amount will be when you less out grants and things that we receive, and all the soft costs get rolled into it. That'll be our debt service. Right now, we're looking at a 20-year note, and we think our annual payment would be north of $1 million annually. And we think that in order to make that payment, we're going to need to issue 200 COs a year. And we've done that the last 2 years. Those are our best years. Now, that's without the pledge revenues. With these, what we're asking the developers to do, they're going to come to the table with their 60%, and they're going to pledge it. And it's going to allow us to go back to something that staff is comfortable with, that even in a bad economic downturn, we still issue this many building permits a year.
Did that answer your question? Because I didn't. I think what Commissioner Coleman is asking is, and this may be a Dallas question, is at what point do we have to turn? I mean, Mike said 88 million. At 88 million, my impulse is to sit on my hands and sell Tallahassee. Guys, we've jumped through every hoop, and we can't afford $88 million, right? And you haven't helped us. Right.
Where's the cap for us?
Right.
City of Newberry.
Mr. Mayor, at the $88 million that we've been estimated by our engineer of record, the rate that you set your development fee at, the 10.5, which goes into effect next year, that fully funds the debt service for that $88 million.
If you build 200 homes a year.
If we build 200 homes a year.
For how many years?
20. But 200 is, Newberry's gin into 200.
That
Right.
also takes into account, and as you may remember, you can only increase your impact fee rates every 4 years. So that does also take into account every 4-year increase in your impact fees for water, wastewater.
Okay.
But to answer your question,
But that,
if we build 200 houses a year at the development fees that you have currently set, you will fully fund your debt service.
But that to me sounds like the answer is we can't afford it, because in 2006 or 7 in the recession, right, Newberry was building 85, 90 houses a year. So that's our terrible bar, right? Right now we're building 200, 220 a year. We're doing great bar. And I think, well, we got to wait till the year's over, right? So my question though, Commissioner Clark, is for a conservative dais, you're not going to say, well, we're going to continue building you want to go up, I say 250.
No, I'm talking about this year's.
Right.
That's what
So-
you're saying. Now, we're probably gonna be over that. How much?
So, but stay with my point for just 1 second. Stay with my point for just 1 second. So 85 in a terrible year. Let's just say, for hypothetically, 200 is a good year. What Dallas is saying is we got to continue doing the best of the best in order to make this payment. That's never been what you guys have been willing to commit to. It's always been not 85, but not 200 either, right? It's going to be somewhere in the middle. If we can make the debt service off of 150 houses a year, well, I feel like Newberry's going to continue to build 150 houses a year. And it may be that we're going to continue to build 200 a year. I think Mike is right. Our data shows it, right? But if the question is what's our top, and the answer is we've got to keep building at the rate we're building now,
One caveat, Mr. Mayor.
okay?
We have to build 200 houses a year at our current development fees. As I
And
mentioned,
every 4 years they'll go up.
every 4 years we plan an increase. So obviously, every time that increase, you have to build less. But also, that's where your development, these new development agreements step in, is regardless of whether or not we build the 200 houses, or the development community builds it, they have guaranteed they're going to pay the debt service for this wastewater plant. So essentially, we're transferring the risk from ourselves, from the city, from your ratepayers, to the developers. They are required to make that debt service payment regardless of how many houses they build.
And I mean, I think that's a fine point, but it doesn't, it just, it should shift the risk back to them. I like that part about this, right? But if I'm in their seats, I would say the same thing that I would ask you guys to make. Do I think I'm going to always do the best of the best for the next 10 years? Or so, I mean, in my mind, it's still kind of in the same realm of a decision making, right? I'd be a whole lot more comfortable if it was, hey, you build 150 houses and you made this debt service, and if you build 220, well, then you're doing great. You roll that over to next year, right? You get ready for the recession. Am I on your question there?
You're dead on.
Okay. Hang on, Mike's going to answer one more thing
We're
about.
just gonna, when we get these signed agreements from developers, we're gonna treat them like building permits or COs. So if Mr. Norfleet says I'm doing 50 homes a year, then we're gonna say, well, we had to do 200 homes a year to meet our debt service, but Mr. Norfleet has pledged to do 50. And so we don't have to worry about whether he builds them or not. He's gonna write us a check. And then we get Gromax and they'll pledge 40 or 50. And then M3 will pledge 40 or 50. These agreements are intended to stand in the place of issued building permits, and we'll count them. And our intention is to, out of the 200 we have to make the minimum debt service payment, our intention is to get the development community to commit to some 60% of those, and then our normal growth would take care of the rest.
Okay. You still have the floor. Yeah.
Next question, which is I'm leading it. Is this the right, I'm trying to ask this, is this size facility the right one? I mean, could we scale back the facility, or if we do that, then we end up.
You outgrow it quicker.
You outgrow it a lot quicker.
Yeah, there's some crystal balling going on here.
Yeah, you're right.
If you outgrow it in 10 years, you're paying debt service on it for 20 years. And now you're paying for a facility that's at capacity. So, there's a lot of crystal balling going on, and where we're making our best judgments. But Jamie has a ton of experience in this. Our consulting team has a ton of experience in this. We think that 1.2, and remember, of the 1.2, only 1.025 is for Newberry. The 175 of that goes to Archer. So we're currently a 600,000 gallon per day plant, and we're expanding to a little over 1 million gallons per day for Newberry commitments. Archer's got to pick up their own 175.
That's where I'm frustrated with Tallahassee, because
Yeah.
I can see us using this capacity in 10 years at our growth rate.
But the commercial growth that I see that we're going to, that doesn't really, that doesn't impact this, does it? It's
What?
mostly residential.
Well, because we're mostly residential in our growth, but, for purposes of this, when we talk about building permits, we convert non-residential permits to ERCs. You hear Jamie talking about ERCs.
Right.
Those are equivalent residential connections. So Publix, they're building, if I remember correctly, they're worth 9 houses. So whenever they paid their development fees, they paid the development fees for 9 houses, and we counted their capacity as 9 houses. And we do that with all development, all non-residential development that comes in. We're going to, based on their meter sizing, we will allocate them what we think their daily flows will be, and they'll pay their impact fees based on how many equivalent houses we think they are.
And last but not least, let's do the crystal ball. I don't even want to ask the question now. Is, you know, when do you think you're going to be adding on to the capacity again? Like with where you're at, what are you thinking?
Well, the best crystal ball we have
2037
is when we'll begin planning. So that would put us in construction in the 2040s.
So what we do now is really, overall, we're looking at 10 to 12 years.
And
Well, I mean, but you guys do have the ability, y'all have the ability to say,
25 and come out 37.
That's plenty.
you guys have the ability to say we're only going to do 200 a year or 250 a year based on the capacity to insure. So you guys do have that ability to say, hey, we can't start planning until 2037. But I mean, we keep throwing around 50 houses a year because we're looking for 200, right? Well, the ranch is planning on 90 a year when they get started. How many are they building a year in Avalon Woods right now? Is it 60?
No, Avalon Woods builds more than that.
Is it 90 now?
They're currently north of 100 a year.
Okay, so
What's
So
the other
if-
new development?
Gromax, but
Westone is one of the new
right,
developments.
but Gromax only has one approved, and it's for 500 or 600. But they want to be done in 2 years. We told them at the P&Z that probably wasn't going to happen because that meant they were building 300 houses all by their lonesome, right?
Correct.
So the commission, the dais does have the ability to say, we've got a 20-year based on this number. We've got to stay within that realm. Sorry, Gromax, you can't build 300 in 1 year because that wouldn't leave anything for anybody else, right? Commissioner Coleman, you said that was your final question?
That's it, man.
Commissioner Clark?
So we'll get into this more, but like Dallas is speaking in $88 million terms, paying debt service on $88 million?
No, sir.
No, sir. The debt
88 million is
service
the
that we
total
take
amount.
in, which will be about,
We will,
About 60 is what we're estimating, the 52 of the developer share and then the city's portion.
yeah,
and then whatever grants come in, that even may come down more based on
potentially.
potential.
And at least for now, there's only one outstanding grant. We have been beating the grant bushes to death for the last 5 years, but we do have this outside shot, and they're supposed to make a decision in the December, 1st of January.
And that's the
Great
reason
Christmas present.
I called you, was that last week or whatever. You looked at federal, I mean, I'm beating my head against.
Well, that's what, when I say put my hands under and sit on my hands and say Tallahassee,
We can't do it.
but we've, tell me a city that's worked as hard as we to try to make this new policy of yours work.
And the whole thing of it is too, Mayor, is that we're under the thumb of Tallahassee. If
Right.
you don't do this, I
Right.
mean,
They made the advanced treatment standards.
yeah.
They're the ones holding the grant, so.
Here's their timeline.
I don't mean it as
Make it
I just
work.
don't want to do it. I mean it as because our policy is very, very precise that development fees and grants pay for capital, our rate pays for the maintenance, our customers pay for the maintenance. And what I don't want to get into is a situation where the only way that you make this work is that you start increasing the rates to come over and pay for the bill. I think and that's where I would say to Tallahassee, and at 88 million, it starts to sound like, because once we sign on the dotted line, if we're not building the 200, and I get that's why we're talking about the secured debt, and that I understand that makes sense. But I think we have to treat the developer like they're us, right? Would we make that deal, right? Would I bank on my ability? And maybe if I'm building 90 houses a year now in one development, maybe, asking to guarantee that I'll build half of that isn't a big gamble. Maybe that sounds, I think even in a bad recession, I'm still gonna build half of what I'm building now. Commissioner Clark, you still got the floor.
Mr. Mayor, so I had talked to Morgan the other day too, and some developers when we got done with Mike and the whole meeting I just sat through. So if you get 5 builders that roger up for 50 houses, and they say, I'm gonna build 50, but we're not charging them the 50 times 10, 5 the day they come in for their planning. They kind of pay as they go, but by the end of the year, if they haven't built 50 houses, then they roger that up.
Is that
Has
one of the
that been a
options?
proposal?
Is that one of the
As
options?
long as we can guarantee to DEP
I just didn't know if
that
somebody
we're
come to
getting that
Mike or
money.
you yet about a proposal like that.
Option 3 was 10%, but it was
Yeah,
10%
yeah,
at
yeah.
the beginning of the year.
Well, some people
Not-
ain't got that big money and to do that.
And, you
So
know, that
just a
matters in the
proposal.
first year, but in the second year, then now are you paying at the end of the first year or at the beginning of the second year? It's the same check. It's just whether you get out the gate with 10% down.
Whatever that plan development or whatever that contract we got to get with the developers.
Dallas?
I think as long as we can commit to making the mortgage payment twice a year,
Twice a year.
Yeah, it's every 6 months we make a mortgage payment. We're flexible as long as we get the guarantees and the surety. The agreements and the surety devices, we're kind of flexible. We need enough money to make the first payment, and then if we collect at the end of the year, then that's the way we do it. But we do need to have the money to make the first payment.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to circle back to Commissioner Coleman's question, I believe. We have applied for every federal funding program we can think of. On the list here, you have the EPA WIFIA, that's the Water Infrastructure Funding Something Act. We've also applied for USDA funding. We did hear back from USDA. USDA offered us a loan at an interest rate higher than the market is currently offering interest rates at. So we chose not to pursue that. We've also been in contact with Representative Kamick's office to see if we can get an appropriation in the federal budget. We are collecting change in the streets at this point.
I mean, but to that, and that's an interesting thought because it seems to kind of blend option 3, but we're in a hot market now. Let's say that we could come up with an option like what Commissioner Clark just suggested. I'm building 90 houses a year. Does the 40, I just pay for them as I go, just like regular. I'm paid up my 50 halfway through the year. Do the other 40 roll over to the next year? So if we have a real estate crash the next year, how does that? I mean, if we're making the payment once a year, then I think we could probably address something like that. But
I anticipate that would be builder's choice.
okay,
You can pay for 50 a year and rock on for 10 years, or you can say, I'm having a banner year, and I'm just gonna do another 40. I mean, next year, I've only gotta come up with 10.
and that, I mean, we got to flesh this idea out, but it seems kind of close to what option 3 is. Or neither of you are shaking a head saying red flag.
Again, as long as the revenue is guaranteed to the city to make the payment, DEP will be happy.
How would they secure? Give me and Scott just walked out, but how would they're signing a contract saying, I promise I'll build 50. If I get to the end of the year and I've only built 48, then I'll write you a check for the 2. That's more palatable than I'm writing you a check for.
And we would
For
probably
50.
require they put up a surety device to
Right.
ensure that if they didn't pay for the other ones.
I mean, because part of my feeling on this is developers stand there and they're the ones that tell us, this is how many I'm going to build. And, you know, we've had instances where they came up and they said it's going to take us 20 years and they're done in 3. We've had instances where they said, I'm going to start as soon as you guys bang the gavel, I'm going to be out there with a shovel, and 20 years later they haven't moved, right? So part of me feels that it's justifiable to say, look, if you tell me you're going to build 90 a year, I'm asking you to promise that you're going to at least build 50. If you can't get behind that you're going to build half of what you say, and I know 50 is not actually half of 90, but no one ever accused me of being good at math. But if you can't, if you can't assure that you're going to do roughly half of what you've said you're going to do, well, then maybe you got to go back to your development. So that seems reasonable to say, and that way you just pay like you would normal. But then there's some cutoff date where if you haven't got to that 50, you got to true up.
Correct.
Can we make that let everybody sleep on that? Let's make that an option 4, because I think that addresses the main concern I heard when we first started talking about this was, what if I'm brand new, I'm 25 years old, and I'm trying to build 15 houses, but I'm not going to make any money till number 15, you know? and this is gonna be my first, I'm gonna roll that over. And this, if we have this as a fourth option, that keeps that on the table. And I know we're not really worried about 15 houses, we're thinking more about the 1,500, the 2,000s, but in this scenario, there still has to be a path for that guy who's just starting out to still be able to get started out.
So if you look at this, the number of ERCs, the extra capacity works out to 2,900 ERCs. So we are trying to get commitments for 2,900 commitments up to 10 years.
And we have 10,000 with entitlements.
And we have,
So we're growing for 33% of what people have told us is coming to us.
that is correct.
Now, a lot of that's over more than a 10-year period or 20-year period of time, but that seems like a reasonable place to be in. I don't quite understand Tallahassee's stance on this one. But you're not Tallahassee, so I won't take it out on you.
Yeah, it's definitely the most challenging financial situation I've ever tried to solve in terms of financing for water or wastewater treatment facilities. It'll bend your mind. I heard someone say my mind's getting tired.
That's it.
I get lost in it as well because it's a stretch.
Other commissioners here, Commissioner Farnsworth.
Okay, let me see if I can clarify this a little bit in my head. If somebody comes in, they're wanting to build 500 houses, they're going to do it in several phases, and they plat the first phase, is that when they pay the fee?
No, sir, not necessarily. Before they ever come in for a plat, we're going to have a development agreement that outlines how they're going to pay. They're going to pay option 1, which is all up front. They're going to pay option 2, which is all of it within the first year, or option 3, which is 10% a year for 10 years. And there may be a fourth option before this is done, or these might get tweaked. But they're going to sign an agreement that says, Newberry, we pledge to do, you said 500 homes?
Yeah.
Let's say they take option 3. We pledge to do 50 homes a year. And then using Commissioner Clark's and the mayor's scenario, that you have to pay at the end of each year if you didn't cross the bar. So you do 40 homes, and we get into the 12th month, and we invoice you and say, hey, you owe us for 10 more homes.
But if somebody comes in and they say, oh, I'm going to build 50 homes this year, and then they go to plat it, and they say, oh, well, we can only build 48 because of the various constraints and changes in the thing, then do they only have to pay 48 then?
Yes, I mean, we could, if they paid the 50 and they only plat 48, and they don't want to have 2 reservations for their next project, then we could refund them 2.
If they pay this fee ahead of time, how long do they have before they actually build the properties?
Is the agreement, do you know if the agreement?
They have the entitlements.
We've been doing sunsets for a
They
year,
reserve
right?
it forever.
They have bought.
But
No. I thought we were, these days we were sunsetting. If you didn't, and now, once you have a plat, they're gonna go build, because they've done that. But if they've just come in for future land use and zoning, then we have a sunset on that.
Yeah, and I mean, with these agreements, it's not about what stage of development they are. This agreement says we're paying this much each year, whether I'm platted or not, whether I have zoning or not, I'm making this commitment. I'm buying this much capacity at the treatment plant, and I'm paying 10% a year for 10 years.
Because this is gonna be a rolling, so we get this one paid off and someone comes in 15 years from now, they're buying capacity in a future plant that may not be built, because they're not gonna start for 5 years, but they're still agreeing. Does that make sense?
To Commissioner Farnsworth's point, though, if you commit to 500 and you're doing 50 a year, then we would issue you, and you have surety, we would issue you 500 building permits. Now, you got to get through the platting process. You know, we won't make our processes going away, but you're going to have to make the payment regardless of what your development does.
okay. Okay, so I want to word this one. if somebody comes in and they commit to building, but they don't build for 20 years, and we base the cost on what it is now, what about the cost of putting in the substations and stuff like that? I mean, who's gonna pay for that extra cost?
Typically, development pays for their own on-site infrastructure, and they pay a fair share of any off-site infrastructure that's required. If they're just connecting to a water main or a force main that has capacity, there is no off-site expense to them. But if and I'll give you an example, when the ranch starts developing, we're going to build a new force main from the ranch all the way to the treatment plant. And the developer likely, because we want to get the right size pipe in there so that we only have to put one pipe in there, the developer's likely going to say, I need a 12-inch force main worth of capacity, and but we're going to build a 16 for others to connect to that same thing. And the funding to pay for that extra 4 inches of capacity will come straight out of these development fees. It's oversizing. It's where we get the revenue to do that, which again goes to the point of we're not just taking the raw cost of the wastewater plant, because sometimes we have to do oversizing where a developer's due $150,000 back because he made the infrastructure bigger than he needed, but it was best for the city and the adjacent development that he makes it bigger. So we'll pay him out of those fees, and we'll get our cap charges from that next development when it connects.
Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Coleman? Were you done, Commissioner Farnsworth? No, hang on.
You know how he is.
Are you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's been waiting.
Why are existing customers paying 25%?
Because
I mean, this is for new construction, so why are-
normally,
But it's
if we're,
advanced treatment construction.
it's the advanced treatment portion of it. Typically, you can keep your existing plant, and they've already paid for it once, and so they don't owe anymore. But the state says, hey, your BOD has to be, is currently 20, has to be 5. Your total suspended solids is currently 20, it's got to be 5. Your nitrogen is currently unregulated, and it's got to be 3. Your phosphorus has got to be 1, and you got to do something with biosolids. All of that requires a higher degree of technology than our current plant has, and our existing ratepayers, we got to get the money from somewhere. Now, we're mostly getting it from grants, but our existing ratepayers do have a debt service because we're enhancing the level of treatment that is being provided.
And I guess my final question is, how can GRU afford to have thousands of those homes and apartments built in Jonesville? Where do they get the funding for that capacity? I mean, how is all that being done?
Development charges.
So they're doing the same thing we're proposing to do?
Everybody.
Well, yes, now they typically go get bonds from Wall Street, so they're paying 4% money, 4.5% money. They're also negotiating it on a 30-year term, and they get bonds every year to fund whatever project they have this year going. So they're in a never-ending process, all the big utilities.
But I would say let's not choose GRU's model.
I'm just kind of curious how they are able to
Yeah.
to do all that capacity, and we're struggling to do our little.
I mean, I would also say that if we had put in connection charges on an index increase 2% a year, well, when did we set them? 2007?
Yes.
So that's, I'll do math, right? That's 13, another 4. That's 17 years. 2 times 17. I mean, we'd have 30% more to put towards this roughly than what we have now.
And Mr. Mayor, they don't build 60% additional capacity. They build 10 to 20% additional capacity. They're such a large system that is their growth rate. Newberry won't always grow at this high rate. Part of it that we're growing at a high rate is just because we have so few customers today. When we become a 5 MGD plant, there won't be a 60% increase with the next construction. There'll be a modest increase of 20 or 25%. It's easier to afford that incremental additional gallon of treatment.
And the cost to build this doubled when Tallahassee said you gotta be advanced treatment.
That's
So
correct.
there's another fly in the ointment making this one, because remember, this was gonna be a $40 million, or $45 million. Is that it, Commissioner Farnsworth?
I released the remainder of my time.
Commissioner Martin, and then don't forget your question, Commissioner Coleman, we're coming back to you.
Try not to.
Mike, is there a two-part question? Is there an ability for these developers to buy and sell capacity among themselves?
I believe that the agreements, and we can get you a firm answer tomorrow. I believe the agreements say that you can only sell them back to the city, and
Okay.
we could sell them to
Okay.
someone, but they're trying to keep from scalping
Right.
capacity.
Right, okay. Because my other question was, how do we take it off of that other development? But it sounds like you answered that. Okay.
We'll have capacity certificates, and
Okay.
if you bought certificates for 500 units,
yeah.
then you can come back and sell 50 to us, and as long as we got someone that's willing to pay for it,
Okay.
we'll issue you a new certificate.
You said
In the-
two.
That was a two-part question. That's sneaky. So I'm very, as I expressed in the email to you, I guess last week or maybe 10 days ago, I've been very frustrated, if not disgusted, with the cost of this plant and just the escalation of it. And I had expressed to you that we need to make sure that the builders understand that we are advocating for this. I'm sure you remember that email. Can you tell me in the meeting how that was sort of communicated? Was that message heard by the developers?
I believe so, and I think that's probably the biggest change in the last 60 days was when the developers didn't really know what was coming and didn't understand it well. There
Yeah.
was a feeling that somehow they're being asked to do more than their fair share. And through the presentations and the explanation, I think the development community mostly got the idea that, no, the commission asked us to have 60% extra capacity, and the commission asked us to be creative with how to fund it, and this
Right.
is the best that we could come up with. So I'd say that the general tenor of our meeting last week was positive and geared at problem solving, not at being critical of the information that was being presented.
Okay.
Do you agree, Mark?
Yeah, because it's one thing trying to figure out the cost, but if we're starting with a cost that's too high to begin with, I wanted to know that we were trying to get that down to begin with.
Absolutely.
And then the last thing was really, I guess, more kind of a comment. I'm I guess, impressed with our ability to take on this whole conversation. I mean, obviously, all of our brains are hurting over this, but I wanted to just express, it's a very educational, kind of high-level, intellectual conversation, a lot of big numbers, and I'm just impressed with the staff being able to kind of get on with this, and our developers being able to get their minds around this, as well as the dais, and trying to come to some sort of resolution that fits everybody, because I feel like we're tip of the spear here with the FDEP, which is crazy. Little Newberry, once again, being out in the forefront of this. So, I know this has probably woken you up at 2:00 in the morning, and I appreciate it.
It started. Commissioner Coleman?
Probably Jamie and Dallas to a larger degree than me, but yeah, it's been all encompassing for the last 6-7 months.
Thank you.
My question, Mr. Mayor, is, how can we, no, I better not put it that way. Who's to say that a national builder comes in here and just buys up everybody?
You guys, right?
Yeah, you don't have to approve the agreement.
Yeah. Ultimately, that you guys are the ones that approve.
Am I the only one that thought like this?
Well, that was my comment to GrowMax. When GrowMax said at the P&Z, we're gonna build 600 houses, we're gonna be done in 2 years. I said, no, you're not, right? Because we're not.
Time out.
I said, time out, go back to them. Because I'm telling you, at the P and Z, if you come and say that to the commission's gonna tell you, no, you're not, right? We've got so much capacity. So I think the onus is on you guys, right? At the end of the day, to communicate that to staff, and then staff can communicate it to all the builders who come and say, you're not gonna come in here and buy up all the capacity. We're not gonna let it. Commissioner, you yield the floor to the
Yeah, I
commissioner.
want to, just sitting in with this meeting, and there was a lot of stuff, so that was my concern. And it was a concern in this meeting that, the presentation. The national builders, none of us want them to come in here and build the boxes and get out and get rich on us and go, but they can't. It's tied to the dirt. So if you approve a subdivision, they're buying what they want in that subdivision. So if you want the national builders out, you don't approve a subdivision because of what they're buying is tied to the dirt. They can't come in and buy all the capacity. It's only tied as they go to a development.
You don't get it capacity until you plat.
That's right. So that kind of keeps them from doing what you said, but if we approve a subdivision and it's theirs, they got it.
And I
Is
took
that
your,
legal?
yeah, because I took
I mean,
your.
I don't wanna be.
Right. I took your question as what's to present a national developer coming and saying, I'm gonna build
Yeah.
8,000 houses and I've got the plat ready, right?
Yeah.
Well, you guys up here say, no, we're not gonna approve that.
Staff's gonna come back and say, well,
And it's absolutely legal to say we don't have capacity.
what's his name out there? We got all they got.
It's illegal to say, I'm not approving you because I don't like your company. It is perfectly legal to say, I'm not approving you because we don't have wastewater capacity.
Correct.
And
won't get us. in trouble.
we're asking the development community to partner with us. I had a developer call me today and say that we hear you with the 5% building permit growth rate, and we're shifting gears for it, but we hear. And I think that a commission is within its right to say that anything faster than 200 or 220 is too fast for our community. It's too much growth too soon, and we're going to throttle things. So we have 2 projects right now that are under review. Both, we have asked them to split the plat in half and come in with half the lots that they originally walked in the door with. Both willingly agreed to do it, and you guys likely will see them in the first quarter of 2025.
And on that point, because I think this is important, and I don't think I've ever had this conversation with Stacy, but I think I've had it. To me, it's not a number, right? It's a percentage range that we feel like we can grow. And there's going to be a correlation there, but I don't want to say to somebody, we're only going to build 200 houses. I want to say Newberry's comfortable building 4 to 6% a year, and as we grow that 4 to 6 changes, right? So this year it might be 200. Next year it might be 205. The year after that it might be 210. But when it comes to the wastewater, it may be more of a number, might be the better way to go about it. I don't know, but in my mind it's been a percentage because that's what I've read, right?
Yep.
4 to 6 is a robust. Sub 4 is.
And to your point, Mr. Mayor, though, 25 years from now, 5% growth rate may be 400 homes a year. And we may be comfortable that that's not too many too quick because it's the rate of growth, not necessarily how many building permits you issue.
Questions, Commissioner Farnsworth?
Kind of hitting on what Commissioner Coleman says, if somebody comes in, we have the capacity for it, and they want to build 4,000 homes, and we say, no, because we don't have the capacity, but in actuality, we do have the capacity if we've already built the thing.
It'd be reserved.
It would start out as a conversation and a negotiation. I mean, at the end of the day, if they lawyer up, they could make it tough on us.
That's what I was thinking the same time, what would you do if you want?
Well, if they want 4,000 homes and they're willing to take option 1, and we can turn it right around and start building, well, then that's a conversation. But if they don't, I mean, the problem here is always, we've been working on this for 3-4 years.
Yes, sir, at least 4.
And it's going to be another 2 before we're ready to go. So you can't come and stand at that podium and say, I'm going to build 4,000 houses and I'm going to get started in 6 months and I need y'all to have capacity. We can't It's gonna take us 5 or 6
What if
years.
we already have the capacity, that's what I'm saying.
But in this scenario, most of that capacity is gonna be secured. So yeah, there'd be,
It's already spoken for.
it's already spoken for, right? So we can't sell it twice.
It wouldn't have gotten built without
And-
being.
Right. What the developers are getting here is they get assurances that their capacity is there, right? Like Sandia Park, I guarantee you, Sandia Park has believed that they have capacity when they're ready to get going. But other people now have beat them to the punch. If they came and said, I'm ready to get started tomorrow, we'd have to say, time out. You don't have any capacity. It's all, even though the plan is at 50%, there's 50% capacity there, that other 50% is already spoken for. In this scenario, if they take one of these options and sign a contract, then we will not have 600,000 gallons of capacity open. We're gonna have some number under that because some percentage of it's gonna be secured, and we can't sell that twice. So if you're coming in for 4,000 houses and there's only, 500 houses left of capacity, well, we can work with you on that 500, but you're gonna have to help us. And we need to know before we start building another $80 million plant, that we actually need to build that $80 million plant, not that you're just gonna come in.
So you're saying, I don't know how many permits are gonna be allowed or will be available?
Well, we need 200 a year to make the debt service, roughly, with our
200 a
numbers,
year over
to pay
20
the debt
years?
service.
Correct.
So that's a bunch.
That's a bunch.
4,000 homes.
Because, I mean, somebody can buy all this 4,000 right up front.
They can't. No, they have to go through the entitlements, they have to go through the plat. It goes with the land, so you guys have to approve it, and you can say, we don't have the capacity, so we can't approve that.
If we had a whole new commission that had a different philosophy, and they said, sure, if they're willing to pay, we'll sell it. And we would take that last dot there on the road, 2037, and we would ask the commission, if you want, we'll drag that back to 2027 and we'll start the next expansion right now. Because regardless of how many entitlements they buy, their ability to build houses is still going to be throttled. And it's going to be just throttled in a large degree by our ability to inspect houses. So, I think that it is useful that our building department doesn't grow to 10 inspectors when the commission is trying to keep us right around 200 building permits a year. It is useful to have one inspector. He's only got so many resources. He just doesn't have the time to go inspect 500-600 homes a year.
What Mike is saying is we have lots of ways where you guys can make sure that our growth rate and our capacity line up.
But if somebody comes in and buys 500, they have the land, they come in, they have 500 permits, but they decide they don't want to build for 20 years. So those permits are tied up for 20 years? I mean, even though they paid for it, but then we say, well, no, you can't.
That horse is dead right there.
No, you say, no, you can't build, you can't come in and build because all these permits are.
But they've already paid for it. They would pay for it. So they would have paid for it at that point. I mean, I do think that Monty's making a good point because we still have to operate a larger plant than what we need to operate, which is the situation we're in now, right? But in terms of the capital outlay to build it, they would have already paid for it, whether they use it or not. And I would think after they shell out that much money, they're going to want us to buy it back to sell it to somebody else, those kinds of things. Dallas, you have a...
You beat me to the punch, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to say, if a national home builder comes in and wants to buy $40 million worth of capacity, that's a business decision that they're making. It's kind of a strange business decision, I would think, to pay $40 million in capacity that you're not going to recoup readily. But there is the tenets of capitalism here that are also going to keep some of those large builders from buying all the capacity because, if you're not going to recoup your investment in a reasonable amount of time, then why are you doing it?
Other questions?
I got a suggestion.
Okay.
I got a pen. Thank you. Suggest a way.
Like Northfleet's out there, I mean, wouldn't it be more cost effective for him to have his own sewage plant?
I mean, I seem to remember pursuing this before too, and there's state laws that, so cities, governments have to run it. They can build it, but then they gotta turn it over to us.
Well, the reason I say that is down there at, I'm around there appraising. They're, in the villages, I think that's their own sewage plant.
But the villages is like a city. They have their own, yeah.
So to your point, right now, our ordinances prohibit anyone else from providing wastewater service within our city limits. If the commission decides it's okay, I'll tell you that at some point, the economy scales aren't there. If a developer, and the ranch, 4,600 homes, is big enough to build its own wastewater system. Right now, your ordinances protect you. But there's a point of diminishing returns. You can't build a wastewater plant for a 400 home subdivision cost effectively.
Right.
So, so most of them are coming to the city. And the reason that the city has those ordinances that says you can't be in the wastewater business is because the city had to guarantee to pay debt service way back when, and every house that got CO'd needed to pay their fair share so that we could cover our debt service payment. And Archer's feeling that pain today. The people are saying, my septic tank's fine, I don't want to put it out of service yet. And the answer is we hear you and we understand, but the state ain't going to lend us the money unless 100% of you convert from septic tanks to wastewater. Everybody's got to pay their fair share, or we're not going to be to swing it financially.
Mike, am I wrong? Because I thought what Jamie told me was that Newberry does have that ordinance, but the state, even if you let a private company build it, they have to turn it over after, because they want someone who is responsible to the government to make sure all the regulations and permits and testing and everything, and private industry usually balks at those kinds of things. Do I have that wrong?
No, you probably have that right. Jamie knows far better than me, but I would say that it's
because that was my objection to it.
At minimum, Jamie's correct in that it's best practice.
Because if we have
maximum,
to
he's just
operate
right.
it, I'd want to know that what we build is something that's operatable, right? I don't want someone building something that's not very good and then turning it over to us and be like, well, I built it, now you guys have to operate this piece of crap, right?
Right, and the point that I was making there is it even cost effective for a contractor?
I thought it all came to the interest rates, that we could get a 1% interest rate and they were going to have to pay 4%.
That is correct.
I thought that was what it came down to. Yeah, Commissioner Martin asked a question that prompted, so if I take option 1, the incentive there, even though I'm writing a big check, is I lock in dollars at today's rates,
Correct.
right? So if you guys have an index increase in it, I get it at $2024, not $44. And option 4 that we kicked around, I'm paying as I go, so that means I pay the rate as they exist that day?
We think so, but we're creating option 4.
We're creating option 4 right here
It
in the
really
moment.
could work either way.
Okay,
I
all right.
believe in the existing option 3, it's you pay today's rates.
So if I agree to option 3, that does lock in my rate.
Correct.
For 10 years, I'm still paying. Okay. I mean, it's a question, it's not a suggestion. Okay, final thoughts, because for the public, we don't normally spend an hour and a half before we get to public comment, but Newberry doesn't normally spend $90 million either, so I think it warrants and I agree with Commissioner Martins, I've been very impressed with the level and depth of the conversation, so.
It's terrific feedback. Thank you.
Okay, we don't also normally take public comment on presentations, but again, we don't normally spend $90 million, so if anybody has anything they want to say, we'll put 2 minutes on the clock for anybody to weigh in on this one. We also have public comment coming up, and then we got 5-minute public comment at the end of the night. Come on down, sir.
Yeah, like I said, appreciate letting us talk, but I think what y'all are proposing to do, I think is pretty good. You know what I mean? One thing, I think the 1.2 million.
Can you say your name for you? I don't know that we all know who you are. Is it on?
There you go. But I think the 1.2 million plant, they definitely need it, and I think they're designing it with a 600,000 gallon train that could go on it pretty good. You know, a couple of things I vary on is, you know, like you said, there's two different deals. Is how much the plant costs to build, and then how you pay for it. And like you said, I think they're thinking about the paying for it. I just sure want us to keep an eye on the cost, which I'm sure the staff is going to do. And like I said, you know, Archer's still like it is when I was in high school. Newberry wasn't much different than Archer, and we sure don't want to stop the building, you know, or I don't, you know what I mean? That's what we do. But like I said, I think the biggest thing to get to the January mark that they want to get to, you know, we've all just seen it last week, and we're throwing up a proposal too, you know, maybe something, and I sure don't disagree with what they're saying. It's just a lot to get together, I think, in a quick amount of time. And so I guess my question to you guys, were y'all going to do some more meetings, or how is that going to transpire, you know, to get to that January deal? Are you going to try to make the January?
Let's get out of public comment, and then we'll break that question back up to the
I mean,
dais. 'Cause I think that's a good
I
point.
was curious.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough, you know.
And I don't want to see you out in public again unless you're wearing an NC Seafood Market and cattle hat. I'm very disappointed. Did you want to come down and talk, ma'am? No? Okay. I think that's a good question. So I asked at the very beginning of this, who's got to approve it? And the answer was us and Tallahassee. So we have an option 4 that's been kicked around up here. Do we need to have another meeting before the day that we have to submit this so that we can vote on actual language for all 4? Do we think that we have a good enough gist of option 4 that's been created here on the fly that we can put that in? Because in my mind, more options the better, right?
As long as they're manageable by staff.
Right.
You know, if you get 1,000 variations.
Yeah.
But generally, so I would say, to your point, we're going to try to get, this is what the master agreement looks like, but what the commission and the commission could bless it, but the commission is going to be asked to approve the individual agreements, because a developer that chooses the 10-year payment plan, option 3, his agreement's going to read different than the developer that chose option 1. And so the choices, you know, very specific, the commission will be picking all of those.
But doesn't the commission need to bless the options? And we don't have another meeting in December, and we don't have a meeting, if you want to be in Tallahassee by January 5th or 6th, I don't know when.
We have to call a special meeting.
We're going to have to call it. I mean, is that what we need, a motion to say, here's the in-depth 4 options, because we've got 3 that we have, but the 4th one is kind of on the fly here.
And I would say, Mr. Mayor, it is really commission's choice. The master agreement doesn't have to be blessed by the commission for us to send to Tallahassee. You know, we'll continue to modify it. It does have to be blessed by the commission before you approve one.
I mean, I'm happy with the 3, and I think that 4th one that Mark threw out, and I think the broad strokes of that, and obviously Dallas is going to look at that and decide, yeah, that's manageable, because I guess my only concern with that would be, you know, when are we making the payment? And how, you know, we've got to make that payment. So can we kind of float as they come in? So that would be my only, I'm sure there's a legal question in there as well of how do they secure it, bond it, get sureties, those kinds of things. Is the commission comfortable with saying, we've given you the broad strokes, put that in the option, and then we bless that? Do we need that in a motion right now?
Mr. Mayor, this was a presentation. We didn't anticipate a motion.
Right.
The commission gave us direction, go make these agreements happen, and we, at minimum, are going to allow the commission, the commission has to approve them, the staff can't, but if the commission wants them to be on the agenda for the first meeting in January, we'll
It's a question, not an ask.
Yeah,
When you go to Tallahassee, what gives them the assurity? Is it this conversation and everybody's head is shaking? Yeah, those 4 options are good. And you can say, our commission has approved 4 options and we've worked with the development community. But then I guess the question is, when does the development community have to sign on the dotted line that they're giving these assurances? So these are the 4 options. When are we publishing those 4 options to the development community?
We're asking the development community to get them executed first week of January. if we won't be on the February hearing. And we will have them to the commission at the next meeting.
Are we gonna have another development meeting with the fourth option? Where we have somebody ready to, like sign the contract with them?
Not unless it's requested.
Okay,
We'll distribute it to the developers and their attorneys and explain this is what we did. We added a fourth option, but we don't anticipate having an additional meeting.
but they have the right to call up and just come in and have
Absolutely.
meetings one-on-one and say,
We're getting those calls every day,
I'm sure, okay.
all day long, every day.
What is the commission, do you wanna have a special meeting to hear this fourth option, see it? Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, I'm flexible to whatever needs to be done. I guess mentally, I can see a master plan that's pretty boilerplate, and then there's a whole payment option. That's sort of a separate thing. So the master agreement is the master agreement, but the payment plan is a little bit more customized. Honestly, I don't know if there was a lot of traction for number 2. Maybe we just throw out number 2 and try to minimize the options, the payment options we got. But
And it's possible that option 3 morphs into option 4. They're very similar. One pays at the beginning of the year, one pays at the end of the year. It may just be, let's just go with the end of the year. The only thing, to the mayor's point, is we got to make sure we can make the first mortgage payment, and then after that, it's no
Right.
different.
is it too soon? We have a workshop on Monday. That's a one item workshop. Can we make that a 2-item workshop and we put option 4 down in writing and let you guys look at it? We advertise to the developers, they have the opportunity to come and talk to now we're not trying to schedule another, we're already here. The roads one is gonna take a little bit, but I think we could add, it won't be another hour and a half on this one item. What do you think?
I'm good, whatever we need to do.
Just have it first.
I just wanna make sure everybody has the opportunity to talk to you guys in this. We can't vote at a workshop, but it would be one more opportunity for everybody to voice. But I don't know if staff can have a fourth option kind of fleshed out by next Monday. We gotta have it all done by January,
We
so.
like flexibility.
Okay, all right. Well, let's make it a 2-item workshop. Let's do the roads first while everyone's fresh. And then we'll come back. Hopefully it'll be a real quick. This is option 4. We like it. Listen to what everybody's saying. Good?
Sure do.
Okay, we're going to move to public announcement. Your commission likes to hear from you frequently often, so they put this early at the meetings, usually. These are the 2-minute announcements. If you got a garage sale, lost cat, those kind of things. We have a longer public announcement at the end. Anybody want to tell the commission about anything? Came to the tree lighting ceremony. It was fantastic. Anything like that? All right, moving on. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin. Second from Commissioner Clark. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion passed unanimously. I got a question about item 5 and the application or the agenda. I don't see anything that says quasi judicial, but in the presentation, which I don't have, it does say quasi judicial. Is resolution 2024-16 legislative or quasi? It's quasi? Okay, then. We are entering into a quasi-judicial procedure. It means the commission will stop being a legislative body and become a judicial board. It means we have to follow certain rules and adhere to a different standard of decision-making. The primary rule must follow concerning assessment and substantial and competent evidence standard must be met when the judicial board makes a decision. This standard states the following, and I quote, all public testimony taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents should be entered evidence. Giving opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. I'm going to ask the attorney at this time to read into the record the resolution by title only.
Mr. Mayor, this is resolution number 2024-16 SD 24-06, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, approving a preliminary plat consisting of 10.22 acres, more or less, as authorized under Section 5.16 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations in a planned development PD known as Countryway South Phase 2 on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, repealing all resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2024-16 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask you to swear everybody in, and I'm assuming you will make a Scrivener's error note for our agenda for us. Thank you. If you are here to speak to this agenda item, would you please stand and be sworn in?
Okay, please state your name for the record, starting on my left here. On my second.
Daniel Young.
Do you hereby swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. You
Thank you, ma'am. We're now going to disclose any ex parte communications and disclose whether any member physically inspected the property. Remember that ex parte communications are any conversation or transmission of information that may have bearing or influence on any voting member's decision. Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Farnsworth?
None.
Commissioner Martin?
None.
I'm a non-voting mayor, but I have none as well. I'm now going to explain the order of presentation will follow for every quasi-judicial item for us tonight. First, we'll hear from the staff for the overview, then the applicant has the opportunity to make a presentation with no time limit. Then we'll hear the staff's report and recommendation, also no time limit. Nobody's contacted me wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this agenda item have 3 minutes to do so. Then we'll hear cross-examinations from the applicant and the staff. The members of the make a body through the chair can ask questions of the staff or the applicant. Final arguments will be made by the applicant and the staff related solely to the evidence and testimony presented at the hearing and introduced to the record. Then the city attorney will advise the make a body along with factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. They will enter into deliberations. After deliberations, the motion will be taken to approve, conditions continue or deny. Thank you, Ms. Uma. Come on down and give us that. And if the applicant doesn't have a presentation, move right into your presentation and recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope I can talk like you.
No, don't try.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm presenting Resolution 2024-16 SD 24-6, quasi-judicial hearing for preliminary plat approval, Country Way South Phase 2. I'm Umar Sarmishta, Department of Community Development. This is the location of the property. It is the south part of Country Way South. The parcel is 02540-001-000. It's around 10.22 acre. There will be 35 single-family home with associated improvement. There will be a separate lift station. Agent is CHW. We have Daniel from CHW here for any question. He doesn't have any presentation. We have petitioner, the owner also, on Northley property. He's here. This is the layout. They will have 35 lots, single-family lots, and there will be improvement. There will be a lift station in between, and that was one of the reasons for a long review process in that. We were supposed to do the preliminary plat and the construction plans together. Construction plan is also almost ready. We will be coming up with construction plan in January. Staff review, there has been extensive review by the staff. The staff is satisfied that the final revision plan submitted meet the requirement of the City of Newberry. Staff recommend approval of the preliminary plat with the advisory comment to be fulfilled at construction plan and final plans plat stage. These are the, sorry, I think the font is smaller, but basically it says detail on the lift station shall be provided with the construction plan, which we are under review, and it is there. Electric design shall be resolved at the construction plan approval, and I got an email last week from Rance and Jamie that electric design has been, is good. Perimeter buffer shall be provided with the construction plan, and all street lights shall be compliant with the latest FDOT lighting standard, and the applicant is ready to do all those in the construction plan site. My recommended action is staff recommend that the City Commission approve preliminary plat for Country Way South Phase 2, Resolution 2024-16 SD 2406. Staff is here for any comments, and we have applicant here too.
Thank you, ma'am. I know you don't have a presentation, sir, but will you come down and just state your name and let us know that you're waiving your right to make that presentation?
Sure. My name is Daniel Young. I'm with CHW. I'm a professional engineer registered in the state of Florida. I do not have a presentation. Staff did a fantastic job, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, sir. That's going to move us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, that's going to move us to cross-examination, which I'm assuming we're both going to skip. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions? No? No questions? That's going to, do you want to make a final argument, Ms. Uma? You don't have to. Do you want to make a final argument? You don't have to. Wonderful. Mr. Attorney, would you please advise the decision-making body to put below factual findings?
Substantial and competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. I'll enter into deliberations. There are none. I'll have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. That takes us out of quasi. Moving on to item 6, Easton Foundation proposal to expand facilities at the Easton Newberry Sports Complex. Mr. New, are you taking this, or?
Yes.
Yep, yep. All right. I'm interested on how you're going to fit that in, because all I ever hear about is we need more gyms, we need more softball or baseball, or but I know you guys have a plan.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I'm going to kind of introduce the item. Carl Green with Easton Foundation is here. He's going to share more of the presentation with the City Commission. So I'll walk us through just some slides that I have that give some background and setup, and then I'll turn it over to Carl. And who knows what we're going to see on the slide deck. But
3-point font.
Fingers crossed. So recommended action is somewhat complex, but is receive the presentation and direct staff as follows, with one of those 3 choices, and of course a 4th, 5th, or 6th choice is always available to the commission. But I think that's pretty encompassing. And by way of background, the City of Newberry and Easton Foundation partnered to construct a 17,000 square foot recreational facility on 40 acres of land that the city owns north of downtown. Easton fronted $1.5 million. The contract says that the city pays the difference for the construction contract, and frankly, I haven't done the research to know exactly what that was, but it was estimated to be north of $1 million. The parties entered into an operating agreement subsequent to construction about the rules for how we're going to coexist in a 17,000 square foot building, and the operating agreement included a 20-year term that began in 2009, and so it is slated to terminate in 2029. So we're 4 or 5 years away from termination of that. There is a requirement that upon termination of the agreement that the city is going to continue archery activities for at least 10 more years. And so we opened the facility in 2009, and let's see what else we got going on here. So this is kind of a background of how the facility is utilized. The City of Newberry maintains the gym and some office space, and I would tell you there's a fair chance that I don't have this exact. So it generally works like this. We have some shared space. We have the south side of the building. Easton occupies the north end of the building, and those are the sizes of those areas. And on the exterior campus, this is looking south at the bottom, north at the top. We have a 110-acre campus. It started out as a 40-acre campus, and Easton maintains the outdoor shooting area directly north of them. And then Easton utilizes our existing multi-purpose fields that are north of the baseball field for 3 to 4 big events a year. They have the first right of refusal on those. And you all know that in the last 5 years, we've picked up that additional 70 acres. Easton utilizes a portion of that. It's wooded as kind of a field archery course. And Easton's request is an extension of our relationship. They propose to construct 9,800 square foot of additional building on the north side of the existing building. And if you'll remember, we are proposing a 10,000 square foot expansion, additional gym space on the south side. So 17,000 square foot facility, and we got approximately $20,000 square foot worth of addition in the works. Easton proposes to pay 100% of the expansion costs, which they estimate at $3.5 million, and Easton proposes, it's sorely needed, let's renew the operating agreement for the remainder of the period. I don't know if I put in there, I should have. They propose a 35-year extension to the contract. So it was originally a 20-year contract. They're proposing a 35-year extension. And then they provided us with a bunch of renderings, and I'm sorry, you're right. So plan view, overhead view, this is.
Orient me, Mike, to what I'm looking, where's the existing? Is the existing down below to the back?
Yeah, if you know, on the northeast corner of the building, there's a concrete pad on the exterior side. Yeah. That main area that you see in the center, is it.
That's it.
So they're gonna kind of build it just a little bit north of the existing office, a little bit east of the existing office area and go north toward the outdoor archery area. Here's just more of the same. It shows the different rooms, the area plan. And I believe is Barnett here as well? Yes. Okay, so there are better people to describe what you're seeing. Here's an outdoor lanai type area. Here's an overhead view of what they're proposing. Nice looking rendering, and then question. But if you'd like, I'll back it up and let Carl go through these slides and maybe explain what he's proposing, what Easton is proposing.
Come on down, sir. Good to see you again. You can tag team with Carl when we talking about why it's designed that way.
Well, thank you for taking the time to look at this. One thing, when Easton first came here approximately 15 years ago, was the first effort that Jim Easton was willing to throw money at a partnership with Parks and Rec to see if that was the way to expand archery centers. The only reason we have what centers we have is the Easton family's generosity and their love for the sport. So it's with the first, we had a 5,000 square foot existing indoor archery range and then the outdoor area. In that initial operating agreement, you also had staff from USA Archery here. You had a contract operator, which was the NADA, National Alliance for Development of Archery. So there was a lot of different people involved at that time. Shortly after the beginning of that, USA Archery moved their staff to Colorado, and NADA ceased to exist. So Easton absorbed the operations as well. So that was all prior to me coming down here in that. The original agreement was 20 years. In that term, there is the option to renew for an additional 10 years, which would carry Easton operations through September 31st of 2039. So that's another 15 years from now. In that, the city has grown. We've sat here and listened for the last 2 hours how the city has grown, how you continue to plan growing. We're at capacity. And just like a restaurant, when they're at capacity, everyone gets put on a wait list and half of them end up leaving and going somewhere else. So when we get to that capacity, we lose people. We can't accommodate growth. We start losing people, and we do not grow anything. We have brought in several $1 million of economic impact into the area. I know Newberry can't handle all of that because you don't have the hotels and stuff, but it does bring a lot into that area. With our Gator Cup, our Olympic trials, we bring a lot in here. What we want to do is we want to expand so that we can accommodate the growth that the city is proposing and what's going on right now. What you're looking at on the slide is the outdoor area. If you see the shelter on the right side of that picture, that's the existing shelter on the shooting range. By expanding the building out and doing the shade canopies in there and the turf area is to create a little bit more of a friendly, social, family-friendly environment. It gets hot down here. We want families to be able to hang out and enjoy when their kids are taking classes or participating in an event, instead of just sitting on a chair and concrete slabs. So there are some aesthetically pleasing areas to it, but just to create an environment that people enjoy being at. Let's see if I can. You asked about the layout there. On the right there, the existing range, and down below that beige area is the existing area, office area itself. So we've got, what we're planning to do is add another indoor range the same size as our existing range, as well as equipment storage area, another conference room, more staff offices, a kitchen area in the back, program storage, and additional restroom facilities. Right now, the restroom facilities on the front of the building really can't accommodate all the traffic that comes in and out of the building. So by adding restrooms there on the west side, archery, whether it be an event or everyday daily activities, we're able to accommodate a much larger group coming in to use those restroom facilities. Because of the fire requirements, fire code requirements, Marlark said that we had to shift that out. That's the reason you see an offset from the building itself, is so that we can create that, what do you call this, that access all the way through there, the egress route. legal fire code. So that was an additional in there. That's the reason everything looks a little bit offset. But it's, we do have the existing office area down there now that we still need. We did add in there is a storage area now, a garage that's on there now. We are willing to give that area up to the city if we're allowed to replace the existing storage building outside by the range, which I'm not sure anybody would think it's pleasant to look at anyway. We would like to tear that down and put a decent looking metal building out there that fits the needs that are required. There again, it's to create a nice family-friendly environment that people enjoy coming out and hanging out at. This right here is looking back toward the building from the existing range. That shelter is already there. And something that we are, I know with the original operating agreement, that the city covers all utilities there. What we're offering to do is absorb all of the utilities for the new, or all the electrical for the new addition, as well as the existing archery range. If engineers say that it can be separated from the rest of the building, we're willing to put a separate meter in and cover our homes. We know that. I mean, that's an expense, so we're willing to take that expense. And we will take care of all of the janitorial for our needs. And the only reason I bring that up is because I know it's been
Who's replacing the
deliberated in
toilet
the
paper?
past.
Who's replacing the toilet paper? There's always an operating agreement.
I'm sure me and Mike can agree that the operating agreement that we both inherited is one of the most difficult operating agreements for us both to adhere to, because it wasn't really written for us. It was written for a totally different environment.
Before I move to questions from the commission, because the last time that you and I talked, Easton Archery was growing fast enough, and you needed more like 20 acres to be able to do different tournaments. And I love that plan. So is that plan, because I know that our Parks and Rec is growing at a rate that, every square foot on that campus is getting tough. But I've got 40 acres down at Champions and a developer who loved the idea of bringing you down there. What happened to that idea? Shifting what you just had down there, get you 20 acres where you can now do the national tournaments. Is that still on the table? How did we get to expanding this one and away from that one? Because I was super excited about that concept.
Well, what we're looking at for the foundation is we're working on a 10-year development plan now for a network of facilities across the country. And in that is 3 more additional national centers, which is the plan that you saw before. Easton will not fund more than 50% of one of those large facilities because they are a major, a loss. Okay, we only have them because the Easton family wants them to exist and they're funding them. But that facility is a $16 million investment. And you had a developer willing to donate the land, and that was based on development around him, but we were on the hook for everything else. There was no other investment. So without that, it wasn't possible. I went back to Greg Easton and said, listen, Newberry is at capacity. They cannot grow anymore. They're doing more than they should even be able to do in the space that they've got. Would you be willing to fund an expansion? And he agreed to give me $3.5 million to expand the existing facility with no matching requirements.
How long is that agreement good for? So we've got 10 years left on our.
If we do the
how long is the
that's in the
3.5?
agreement, that's 15 more years.
How long is the $3.5 million good for?
Well, if we do the expansion, then we're asking to completely replace the old agreement.
No, I'm asking how long. He's willing to give you $3.5 million. How long is that agreement good for? Will he give us some time to partner up and help you out? Because I can ask Rod, but I don't know if Rod knows. Can you come up and tell us what are our growth numbers? At one point, Parks and Rec was growing at like 20%. Do you have a rough idea of that? Can you come up and tell? Yeah, talking into the mic, though. I'm sorry. Got you out of that comfortable seat.
By my estimates, Mr. Mayor, we're at about 10% right now in regards to our registrations. But I fully anticipate that number to continue to increase.
Well, all I've heard about is how popular soccer is becoming, and we've got a soccer contingent in town that really wants to expand soccer. And I don't know about lacrosse. Lacrosse is still there, still there. So 10% a year is what we're growing in.
Yeah, but part of the reason why we may be at 10% is because we're at full capacity.
And it's the same thing they're hitting. Right?
Right.
People are siding.
Right.
So what give the commission? I know we've got a master plan. We've got plans. Easton's been a great partner. But how does extending this relationship? Because one of the benefits of going out there was that found a nice solution for everybody. We keep Easton right here, but it gives us room to address our own needs to grow. Are the two going to be able to keep on going? Or if we do this, that means that we're not going to be able to hit our own growth rate?
I mean, I would say right now is a workable.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the best answer I can. Well, I think that right now it's a workable relationship, but in 30, 35 years, in terms of what they're proposing, it's hard to say. I think that we'll be, right now we're already busting out the seams.
Yeah. That's been my response to the people that come and say, whatever the complaint is that, we're building on these all-purpose fields as fast as we can. We're expanding. We added 70 acres. And the demand, right? The demand of we need more of everything, right?
We're using all the space we can possibly use in regards to our current needs. Like you mentioned, the multi-purpose fields that are coming online soon will definitely help. And I think it will kind of stave off the need, for more space for the current period. So, but like I said, in 10, 15 years, I think that, we'll be in an even tougher situation.
Okay, I'll let you off the hook now.
Okay.
So that throws me back to my question of how long is the $3.5 million on the table for? Do we have a year, 2 years that we can say, hey, hold on to that $3.5 million, let's see if we can, if with the city's help, we can get a matching grant, we can do something to help, or do you think that this is kind of a one-time offer?
Matching grant to help with what?
Help with, you say you need 16 million. I don't know if there's a way to scale down what you want to do out there so that there's phase 1, phase 2 to get you started.
No, I think that option is already left to do that down at Champions.
Why is that?
It's already been moved to another location.
Oh, the national site? What about just having a facility that size? Now, does that take you out of the 16 million range and back into a $3.5 million range? You can still be
$3.5 million, we couldn't build what we would have in Newberry with just the expansion.
Okay.
The new expansion, the greater capacity there, also removes our need for the gymnasium as often. We may still need it for one national event a year,
Right.
but it removes a big piece of what we have to ask you guys to let us use.
So, do you have any idea how long that $3.5 million is good for? Because that's my core question here. Even if we're not talking about national, if you got $3.5 million on the table and we've got some time to partner and see if we can because if it's not the national, maybe it's not 16 million. Is there any time there, or if you don't get a yes tonight, the $3.5 million goes off the table?
The approval is $3.5 million to expand the existing Newberry Center.
Right.
If we don't make that decision within this next year.
Like 2025, not 24.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Then, if we don't, I need to give them an answer on
Right.
what's coming. But there again.
And I'm not trying to
what is
delay,
that?
I'm just trying to give the commission some options, and I need to know what your options are, because I agree with Rod that we're capped, you're capped, and trying to figure out, we don't want to lose Easton, but we also don't want to have to start telling our kids you can't play here, because we got nowhere else to put you. So that's the context of the conversation. That's where I thought we were coming tonight, was that conversation. So that's my confusion. Commission thoughts, questions on re-upping this? Because if we make this, then that puts a limit on us. There's no way to get around that.
A couple thoughts just to Just to help the conversation, and just so.
Please say your name for the record.
Thank you. Barnett Schnault, President of Monarch Design Group. For the record, I'm assisting with the addition that we're already putting out there from the city's standpoint. I've been working with Carl and Easton on the potential for the concept of this. So I see on both sides, and the need is very clearly there that you're growing. The Parks and Rec is growing, right? Easton's growing. But one thing I do want to say that you might want to weigh is not all spaces and not all growth out there on the field is equal, right? So where you actually look at the spot that Easton is planning the expansion on, short of them vacating that property, it can't be utilized for some of the other things. It can't be utilized for soccer fields. It can't be utilized for other spaces like that. So it's not all, you're getting a greater density and still an equal amount of need that's out there.
And I guess I should have clarified, because my thought process isn't on tomorrow, it's on a 10-year, 15-year cycle. So it's not, we're partnered up, we're best friends with Easton throughout this life cycle, right? It's what happens after that life cycle. So your comment is perfectly relevant to that point, but I wasn't thinking about it right now. I'm thinking about in 10, 15 years, because we're capped now. So 10, 15 years, we're busting at the seams. That's when this conversation is if we do what the request is, we're locking that space in for 35 years. I don't know where Newberry Parks and Rec goes in a 35-year span of time. So I appreciate that comment. I just want to make sure I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm thinking about 50 years from now. Okay. Did you want to?
The last thing I would say too is in your conversation about relocating to a different site, just know that it's a 9,000 square foot addition that they're planning on. So in order to do that, you're talking about even doubling the size of and repurposing it someplace else. So it's not a $3.5 million project. It's substantially more based off of today's numbers. So in conversations too of what are the escalation costs associated, those haven't been calculated in to the value that's on there. So 3.5 is the estimate right now for what information we have. We all just went through this process that we recognize construction doesn't stay still. It escalates as you delay, right? So a conversation today may be 3.5, a conversation 6 months from now might be another 4 or greater as it continues, the costs that continue to escalate.
We know all about those architects and their increasing costs. You know? Okay, Commission, I mean, this is, there is no pure policy, future direction kind of conversation of thoughts. Both facilities are capped out. Commissioner Farnsworth?
What about, what's the status of what is that, Naturals Baseball, whatever group is out there? What's the status of that?
That's, what's that? Active litigation. I mean, that facility is 10,000 square feet? That building?
I don't think it's quite that big.
I don't think it's that big, yeah. I mean, and part of the issue with archery is they got to shoot a long way, which was one of our conversation why they needed 20 acres, because that gives them the opportunity to do, we can't play soccer behind them when they're shooting, you know, so there's that.
The only thing that we're actually expanding is the indoor area and the outdoor waiting area, if you will. We're not expanding the outdoor field, so.
Is the contract you're proposing is 35 years in addition to the
No,
current
it's to
contract?
replace, or we still have 15, so we're only really extending it 20 years.
You say you have 15, but that's with the extension of 10 years. Is that 10-year has to be agreed upon by the city and Easton, or is that just
In
automatic?
the contract, we have the option to renew that 10 years.
Okay. So an additional 20 years. All right.
I mean, part of, just to remind the commission, when we made our decisions to add on, that additional that we were adding on takes our growth rate to when our contract with Easton is up. And then we had a conversation, because remember the side that Easton's on was purposefully built so low that we can't go in there and add basketball courts or volleyball or anything like that, because it's too low. So I would say one of the requests I would have is, in this proposed expansion, is the addition utilizable for anything other than archery once the arrangement would be up? Or, because right now we're kind of hamstrung with that side. I think we have, in 15 years it goes to pickleball courts or something, because that's really all you can kind of fit in there, because the roof was made low. And I think Travis was here when he said, yeah, that was kind of purposefully done to make sure that the city didn't come in and take it over or start competing for basketball tournaments and those kinds of things. So would the expansion, would it be
It'd be the same scale as what currently exists.
same scale? Okay. And that's necessary for the $3.5 million? Because that doesn't give us a whole lot of, when we took it over, it wouldn't be very useful after that, right? Commissioner Martin, you and Monty reached for the mic at the same time. You let him go. Did you lose it?
I mean, I don't necessarily have any argument with Easton being out there. The only argument or friction I've ever heard is the city staff getting along with your staff. That's been the only friction. That hasn't been seemingly a ongoing argument or anything like that. I mean, both names are on the building, right? We got to share the space and get together, and nobody's necessarily over one another or there at the guest of the other. And I mean, I think that the community appreciates the archery being out there. I kind of like the design of what you got. I think you could maybe do cornhole tournaments out there, and maybe it's pickleball or something like that. And, if we said no and they just decide to take their ball and leave, we can't even really do much with the building to begin with. We can't put basketball courts in there.
No, it's in our master plan, actually. So we do have that space is designated once the contract is over.
Then we would have to be lifting the roof and that.
No.
I'm just saying, yeah.
We figured out what to do with that space. Rod, did you want to? I saw a hand go up. Do you want to come up and?
No, that's all right. That's all right.
No.
But to Barrett's point, I mean, it's not like we can build a soccer field there, which is what we really kind of need, so to speak. So I mean, as long as we have an understanding of how we're cooperating out there, I don't have a whole lot of heartache about it.
Again, I'm not talking about friction today. I'm talking about looking 10 years, 15, 20 years down.
Well, none of us will be here anyways.
Yeah, but our kids will.
This whole thing is contingent upon a new operating agreement.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it needs to be a very simple operating agreement that makes sense all the way around. Because we could sit here and debate all night on all the crazy parts that were put in there originally. And it was based on totally different factors. So if we're going to move forward, we both want it to be a lot more simple.
Sure.
We've been able, whenever I came in 2014 down here, the goal was to figure out what was going on and create some sense of how can we move forward. And I think we've overcome a huge hurdle, and we've been able to move forward with that, where Greg would have never agreed to give me $3.5 million to expand it.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, my comments are not about friction. They're about looking forward and seeing, we got a 10% growth rate, we're capped now, he's capped now. How do we do this, Bonnie?
Well, if you're looking at 25, 30 years away, then that contract will be pretty much expired by the time.
We're capped now, that's my point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but our growth rate has gone from 20 to 10 because we can't fit everybody in, right? So today we're struggling. And the timeline that you guys looked at when we did the master plan for Easton, it factored in that this was opening up. So that's what I'm reiterating here, is that we've already had this conversation to some degree about how we're gonna expand that space. And this changes the nature of what you guys decided in that conversation.
Is Easton, do they currently pay property taxes?
No. It's your building, it's your property.
Okay.
Agreement says it's their assessed bill
Where is this,
We'll pay them if they're assessed, the city pays them.
and it's probably, need to have a different conversation about this, but I was wondering where that 20% growth from the recreation department is coming from. Is it coming from citizens of Newberry? Is it coming from outlying areas?
Yeah, I think that's a
And,
different
you know, I think
presentation.
It's another conversation, but I think that should be taken into consideration too. Are we going to do away with a facility that is bringing revenue into the city to accommodate people from outside the city? I'm kind of with Tim on this.
Well, that's why I'm asking to see if there's any time to, are we being given an ultimatum? Or do we have any time to say, hey, he's got $3.5 million, let's see if we can figure out another solution? That's where I started, and that's where I'm still at.
Yeah.
Is you got $3.5 million, we've got land that allows everybody to grow. Can we continue to be friendly and partner, or is this an ultimatum and we need it right now? I'm just asking, can we have a little bit of time? Because again, my last conversation with Carl was a totally different conversation, and they wanted 20 acres and they wanted to expand. And so we had mutual interest that allowed us to have these conversations about Easton. Now that conversation has shifted. But if you guys don't want to wait for more time, I haven't heard from anybody on that end of the dais.
And what about the 20 acres? Can the city not use it?
Well, we're talking about the 40 on the other side of Champions, and we sat with Stefan, and Stefan loved, same reason, right? We got a great partner. Well, the ship has sailed for the national, hasn't sailed for Champion, or hasn't sailed for going out there. He can still build the facility if we can if we can help him out on the matching fund. So he doesn't think he can build the national, but he's still growing. That's why he wants to grow with what he's doing right now, right?
But we can't build soccer fields out there?
Out there at Champions?
Yeah.
Well, we can, but I think it's about best and highest use of what's going to bring in. And to your point, we've got a partner that's bringing people in, right? So, hey, bring an established partner in a place where he can grow. Now everything works. I'd still like an opportunity to pursue that to see if we can do it. That's all I'm asking for here. But Commissioner Clark?
All right, a couple of things. I do like, what was your name again, sir? Carl. He's gonna take, if he builds a building, he's gonna take over all the power again, because in our old contract, we pay the power. You're gonna pay it all for everything you do.
Yes.
You're gonna get a better kind of an inter agreement with our personnel. So you're doing a lot of good things for change. You're gonna make the people work together a little better. You're gonna go ahead and separate. You're gonna get your electric and then build your building. Looking at the map, Mr. Mayor, I personally, where they're expanding, I mean, I've walked that out there, and it don't look like it's something so crazy that the city can't take it. We're building on the south side, our big gymnasium. My question is, when we do this, where's the parking? Who's gonna pave the roads? Where is the facilities gonna get created better? When a national event comes in, I go out here with my kid's friend. This is the worst playground anywhere when it comes to dust and the roads. We don't even put, not chip seal, but we don't put nothing on them for the dust abatement. But it looks to me in the map, there's plenty. Plus, we grew the facility. Mike just said by 60 acres, Mike. Can we use any of that 60 acres for fields?
Well, that's where the fields are going. He can't.
Multi-purpose fields. I'm saying, it don't look like if
He
you
can't
took all
do
that
new
out, that
construction.
we're running out of room. 60 more acres.
But he can't do new construction. He needs to add on. So
That's
we
right.
can't move him to the
I know,
60.
But we
Right.
can.
We can what?
Move our fields over there, get some more room to grow.
That's what the fields
And
are
we
for.
got a gym, and we got, I know we talked about putting a little something closer out there, but we can't build on it, right, Mike?
Correct, we can put on the
We can get
60
near it, but we
acres
can't
got
build on it.
from the
Right.
water management district, we can build the soccer fields, we can't build structures like
Right,
that.
so, I don't know, I mean, I'm not against it, sounds like they're gonna pay their own utilities, I don't know what that costs us a month, and put personnel in there, and we're gonna keep our office space for our city, so, and some
We'll
more
still
bathrooms.
use the office space that we have, the city can use what they've currently got. Like I said, if we were able to
place the storage building outside a little bit larger, then we could give up the garage area.
I mean, the 40 acres, if it's off the table, I mean,
Again,
that's
guys,
another thing.
I don't
I'm gonna
see
give
the
you a chance
40
to work
acres
it,
are off
Mr.
the
Mayor.
table.
Go get that grant.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
I think that
I'm
that,
gonna give you a chance. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I ain't against this thing.
And I'm not against it either.
You bring people to the community.
yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
want you
against
to
it
go
either.
nowhere.
You guys just made decisions in a different workshop that now are gonna have to go back and readdress, and I haven't heard exactly the extent of those decisions that have to be. So if you wanna make a decision tonight, I'd ask Rod to tell us what's the long-term ramifications of the decisions you guys have already made about going back and changing those decisions. Commissioner Coleman, you wanna move? I'm not gonna beat this horse if y'all are all wanting to go. All I'm asking for is a little time here to see if
Let's
this
get
is.
the time.
Okay.
It's got a year.
Yeah, here's the deal. Pickle. This is too quick. We need a little time to, evaluate everything here. I will not, I pledged, right now, I'm not making a decision on this tonight. If they vote, they can vote, but I wanna look at this longer.
You got the time.
That's something. If you got it for a year, let me see if we can't work it out, right? And if we can't, let's get a better understanding of what do we gotta go back to that master plan, right? So, you got a little time?
I don't have a set date.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna take the whole year, you know?
You give me a deadline when you wanna.
Right.
Consider it. I'll let them know that's what you asked for. Greg can.
Yeah.
say yes or no.
Well, and you heard 4 commissioners all express their love of Easton and love what you do for the community. Again, never about any hostility, friction, right? It was just about 2 divergent paths that I thought we were unanimously behind, given our last conversation. Now they're coming back together, and there are ramifications for us long-term, for you guys long-term. That's my only question. So
Well, in 35 years.
and we're down a commissioner.
That's a little long.
Yeah.
Right now, at this point, I have a problem with 35 years.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll cross that bridge. when we-
Now, we don't need a motion, because we just need a head nod that we're gonna direct staff to work on this. We're gonna buy time. I got 2. Are you guys willing to give us some time? I got a 3rd.
Yeah, let's see if we can't come back with 90 days.
That's just the number I was thinking.
Yeah, 90 days sounds like a good deadline to come back and have a fuller conversation about everything. That sound good?
Yep.
Sound good? Thank you, gentlemen, for your patience. We appreciate it. And once again, Newberry loves Easton. We love having you out there. We love the things that you do in the community. We're going to work hard to find a solution that works great for everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas. All right. That's going to take us to charter officer evaluations. Tony's not here. He didn't get his evaluations in. And those may change. So I think that the action right now simply needs to be, can we give direction that our charter officers will get a raise commensurate with what everybody else got, depending on the score on their evals. And that way we get one more eval in, add that in. If it changes anything, it does. It might not. But instead of trying to get too specifics, it'll just be because when you guys do the evals, there's a point tabulation. There's 5 of you. We need one more still to add in to get the average. But I don't want to come back to it. I just want to know that's what it's going to be. And then everyone can look at the evaluations, and you can have your follow-up conversations with the clerk and the manager based on whatever you're reading, whatever you said. That sound good? I need that motion.
So move. Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Clark, that when we get the 5th evaluation in, we'll do the points tally. Whatever we did for all the other employees, that's what will happen for the charter officers. Okay, that's going to take us to citizens' comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak, you got a 5-minute option. We didn't vote?
No.
I didn't vote? Oh, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. It's getting late at night. Too many votes. Okay, now we're to citizens' comment. If you stayed here, you want to talk to the commission about something, you got 5 minutes to do so. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to, I'm going to skip the manager and go to the attorney. You got any comments?
Mr. Mayor, 18th this month is our ethics training, 4 o'clock at our office. And I did want to point out something that Tim said a little while ago I have a difference with, is that he said 10 years from now, we won't be here, and Monty and I will still be here.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, you got any comments for us tonight? All right, we'll go back around to the manager if he ever comes back in, or we just give it over to the assistant manager. You got comments? Go ahead.
Let me find his comments real fast.
It's probably that big, thick book.
Mr. Mayor, Alachua County is holding their 200th anniversary celebration in 2025, and they are looking for each of the cities to host an event with them in celebration. I believe the manager sent you all an email asking for ideas, so if you have any ideas of how you'd like to celebrate Alachua County's 200th birthday, please let the city manager know.
Dallas, do you have any information about that? Because I had a conversation with the director at the Matheson, and he basically said it's just a one-day event, and they're looking for cities to set up a table. But the email from Mike sounded like it was a much grander. Is it much grander, or is it a one-day event and they want cities to set up a table? Stacy's shaking her head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're trying to get
Microphone.
Will you come up to the microphone, Miss Stacy? Yeah, I read something about looking for cities to host events, and that sounded more like,
I think it's a little bit of both, and we're
Okay.
trying to, Uma and I are trying to find out exactly what's needed, because we have an idea of something that we were thinking about presenting with our agricultural history, going from the past to the
Love it.
ag tech.
yeah.
And so we needed to know more about what they wanted us to see, so we knew what to give them. So that's kind of what we're in the process of looking into now.
Okay. Well, let us know.
Monty pictures with Monty pulling a mule, or a mule pulling the plow with Monty behind it.
Well-
Then we'll go to a nice track.
Well, that's very similar to what we were thinking. We were looking at the history going to the ag tech park, so we may be tapping you for pictures.
I got to load hay out North Leeds.
That's what I'm saying. Those are the pictures that we need.
All right, Dallas, you're doing a great job reading
Thank
Mike's
you.
notes. What else?
My second comment, oh, great, Mike's back. Trying to find your comments. We're on this one.
Yeah,
We did the centennial.
I'm sorry. Picked a terrible time to walk out of that. I put it on the back of the agenda, which I can't find. So, Mr. Mayor, just Alachua County, I sent an email about this today. Alachua County is planning their bicentennial in 2025.
Do they want the city to participate?
They do want us to participate, and so they'd help us like do.
We just talked about that.
They,
We did the centennial, so next comment.
Mr. Mayor, these are all of the Christmas activities that we have planned, and really the agency that kind of takes the lead on this is Newberry Main Street and the Chamber. So on December the 14th, we're doing at 5 p.m. the golf cart decorating contest, 6 p.m. A movie in the park, watching Elf, and then at 7:30 there's a golf cart contest. The winners will be announced. So that's coming, and I think then the following Saturday is the parade and Christmas on the Square. So got full slate of activities every Saturday between now and then.
Don't
Did you
forget to
find
be
it?
signing up for the Christmas Light Up Newberry contest. Go to our ChristmasCapitalWatchCounty.com website, download the app.
And, Mr. Mayor, as the commission knows, we are closed for business on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then the following week on New Year's Day. And just a reminder to the commission that we have a workshop next Monday night, which now has 2 agenda items.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes my, does not conclude. I thought you had already read that one as well.
No, I just.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'm excited to announce that Stacy Hectus, our Community Development Director, recently received her AICP, it's American Institute of Certified Planner. So she told us when she was applying to the job that it was a goal of hers to get that, and so we formally made it a goal of hers, and she accomplished it in records time, and so we're really excited for her. It brings an added level of professionalism and credibility with our staff team when they're presenting on planning issues, so congratulations to Stacy.
Do come true.
At Christmas time.
Yes, I think I said when I.
Congratulations.
Am I through? I'm
Well
through,
done.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. That's going to take us to commission comments. Commissioner Coleman?
I'm sorry, I don't have any. I'm not.
All right. That's all right. Commissioner Clark?
Hey, a lot going on in the world if y'all hadn't seen, so regime changes, you just don't know what's going to geopolitically happen, so, you know, God bless our troops, and God bless those that are downrange, and God bless America.
Yeah, serious hiding in Russia, right?
It could be time.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
You want to hear about me doing payout and all that?
I'll hear about that after the meeting, once I use the restroom. Commissioner Martin?
No.
All right. I just want to say thank you once again to all of our men and women who made the tree lighting ceremony so incredible. It really was a great night. If you walk down, they had the snow in the vintage market down there. Came down, the lights on the tree. I think you could see them from space this time. Great crowd. Santa arrived right when he was supposed to arrive. It was like it was just magical. So thank you. I know that's a lot of work. But downtown Newberry continues to get brighter and brighter and brighter, and the businesses downtown continue to say thank you. One important point for everyone to begin to think about, as sad as it is, Miss Judy is scheduled to retire in less than a year. So I have a couple of comments that you guys need to begin to think about is, we don't very frequently hire charter officers in the city of Newberry, and we don't really have an established way of going about doing that, right? Like, do each of you interview everybody individually? Do we hire an outside company? Do we use our own HR? Do we come up with a tally point system for how we do this? So I think we need to utilize Miss Judy's years of experience here and ask her to help us figure out that process. I know we just updated the city clerk's job description, so if you could send that out, let's before we start advertising for a replacement, let's figure out, make sure there's nothing else in that job description that we want to tweak, add, subtract, delete, those kinds of things. And I would say that it's probably a good idea to try to figure out some standard way that we go about hiring. Because when we hired Mike, it was one commission, and then they set a policy, a plan, and then an election happened, and then the new commission chucked that plan right out, and we wasted a whole lot of people's time. Not wasted, right? We were working on it. So how do we go about doing that? How do we?
Not by not letting her retire.
Well, that's the first option, is just say, no, you can't never leave. Yeah. But we have less than a year, and I think it takes some time to go through that process. So, if you could send out the job description, let us have a look at that, comments on that, reflections on that, those kinds of things. I think is kind of the first step, and then comments, thoughts on how do we want to go about hiring a new charter officer. I would just caution you, and I'm going to say this again to Commissioner Mazon, it is not fun hiring charter officers in a small town. It sounds like, but it's not. Because every single one of you is going to have a niece, a nephew, I got a best friend, and this is, we've got 2 positions in this city that you guys directly hire. So everyone else that calls you and says, hey, I saw this job, it got posted on the website, can you put in? You've got the very comfortable position of saying, I don't hire and I don't fire, right? I can put in a word for you, but that's all I can do. But for Miss Judy's position, you guys will be the ones who hire. Y'all are the deciding factor. And so having something ahead of time that says, here's the job description, here's the criteria, this is what we've all agreed to, I think that's a firewall that's going to help protect you from all of your friends' children, right? All the relatives that are gonna probably after this conversation start lobbying pretty hard for that. And I've experienced that myself in a small town. It's a lot. So the more that we can say this is how we're gonna do it, then we're all agreeing and we'll all be held to that order. So just something to think about as we go into the holidays, so we come back in the new year. Maybe we can put it on an agenda and have a conversation about how are we going to go about doing this. We do have an HR department now. that can help give us guidance. I know the Florida League of Cities is a great resource for, all things municipal. All right, that concludes my comment. We are adjourned. We're going to take a 2-minute break, and then we're going to go be right back. So 2 minutes, just there's a bathroom there, there's a bathroom there, and then we're right back. Well, is it everything you wanted? Coleman, if you can hear the sound of my voice, we're going to get started. Are we ready back there on the, okay? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this Community Redevelopment Agency meeting to order. It is 9:47. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as it was published?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none. Any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passed unanimously. With Commissioner Coleman out of the room, he'll be back in very quickly. That's going to move us to presentations. We're going to start with Ms. Uma introducing new team and giving us some updates.
Yes, I'm excited. Sorry about my voice. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, CRA Board. Presenting Newberry Community Redevelopment updates for 2024-25. I'm Uma Sarmishta. I'm the new CRA coordinator. Let me introduce my new team. My team is the CRA Executive Director.
All right.
I will be the coordinator for CRA and ED. And I have a new CRA specialist. I think she can come here and.
Come on, introduce yourself. Go ahead and launch into that 10, 15-minute presentation, introduction.
I can just talk about myself all night. No, I'm just joking. All right, good evening, gentlemen. So my name is Chelsea Bakaitis. I came from the city of Gainesville. I work for the housing department. I was a supervisor over there. Before that, I was a project manager with their CRA, actually. And before that, I worked for the city of Alachua as a coordinator for their CRA. So I have pretty good experience with local CRAs, especially in Alachua County. And before that, I was a regional planner in Utah. So if you have any questions for me, let me know. But thank you. I appreciate your time.
Well, welcome to Newberry. We look forward to it. We've been wanting somebody in that role for a while, so we're excited to see what all you can do with it.
Yes, we are excited too to start a new team and start out fresh. We had some things going on last year, but I'll update on those and then what we are looking forward in this year. So as we all know what CRA is, so CRA is basically urbanized area located within the CRA district, leading to reduction in mostly slum areas. This goes under the approval of Florida Statute of 1969, assists local government in eliminating slums condition and allow local government to create community redevelopment area and community redevelopment agencies. Our CRA boundary, which was, I think, got approved in 2021, is a very vast CRA district. It has around 600 square feet of area. These are some of the projects which was defined under CRA plan that we are planning to do it, like historic preservation, downtown infrastructure, economic development, and public spaces. For historic and downtown, we have already have a facade grant going on. We will be working to rework on that and make it at a better program this year. We have a mural project, and we recently got funding from Alachua County for 2,000 matching grant. So we will be working toward creating a mural this year sometime. In infrastructure, there has been a few sidewalk improvement going on, and I have a separate presentation by Rand on that. Under economic development, we had a consultant working with us on downtown strategy, and I have a small synopsis. They were not able to come down here, but they gave us like a 10-minute slide deck, so I will be presenting that. And creating public space. This is the main outlook which we will be looking for 2025, where we will create a public space where people can come, meet, like creating a third place for everybody to socialize. And what can be better than farmers market or a splash pad kind of area where people can just,
Don't
and kids
make
can
Commissioner
play.
Martin mad now. It's late at night.
And kids play area.
It's like it's creeped back in.
And kids play area, basically. We will have good kids play area.
I also don't want that nightmare of the wall dogs thing coming in here on the road.
Yes.
So if that comes across your desk, that's an automatic rejection.
Rejected. It will be your decision at the end. We will get.
Filter it out before it even gets here.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, we are going to make sure that that's not there. For CRA infrastructure.
Splash pad in the middle, you bring it on.
I see a conflict there. We
Miss
will.
Uma doesn't like conflict. Now look at her. She's sweating up there. Come on.
We will definitely try to work with both our board members together. Wall dogs there, yes.
He wants wall cats. Wall cats. If wall cats come see you, bring them on up.
How about have a train and a train playground?
Yeah.
That will be good for us. No, it's all good.
I need to hijack your presentation.
No, it's all
I didn't want to
communication.
hijack your presentation, no splash pad or anything like that.
Are you moving into item 2? Because I don't see Rance here, so.
I will be doing.
You're going to take
yes,
over? Okay,
I'm
go
doing
ahead.
all the 3 presentations.
Just keep making sure that we're done with item 1, right? You didn't have any other updates, because it said there was now we're doing infrastructure. We're on item 2.
No. This
Okay.
is still in the update. And then I have a separate presentation on infrastructure.
Oh,
and then I have a
yeah,
separate.
y'all be quiet. Let's get
Yeah, so this is just an overview of what's going to be in, I was thinking it will be short night and I will have longer presentation, but it was a long night already. So this is just a infrastructure project presented in the CRA plan. We are going forward with few of those coming ahead, like Northwest 3rd Avenue, and that I will be talking more in the infrastructure project update. And then downtown street lighting is one of the things which I am talking to utility and the facility director to how to improvise that. And we will be coming up with some ideas very soon, and I will be presenting that to the CRA board. This is the CRA map with some utility areas where things have been improved or going to be improved.
Hang on one second.
Yes.
The downtown lighting, I'm sure it goes without saying to make sure we're visioning out the two-way pairs, right? So we're not putting in a bunch of stuff. Okay.
Yes, definitely. It's all right now. That's what Ryan said, that we will work with the temporary one right now, which is not very expensive, and go ahead with that. Another thing we are not allowed to do going through the street, so it will be always on the linear side. So we are talking about that. I'm meeting with Ryan and Joe on Thursday to discuss what are some of the options, and we'll go with the cheapest and the best option right now for just 2 years. This is the CRA map with our new GIS specialist, and I think as she gets more tools to do that, this map will be much prettier with all the identification of where things are going. So I don't think it's visible very clearly, but the blue spot there is the MLK where the stormwater might be going. Then the red line is the downtown street where we are talking about proposed lighting. The blue and the green lines are where the proposed the infrastructure projects are going on. This is a bigger map with utility lines in the CRA district. So we are doing good, and I was talking to Jamie about that, and we will have some stormwater funding soon, so to have like a master stormwater in the downtown, and that will increase our business outlook in the downtown area. Another project which is very interesting, and which my colleague Chelsea has a good experience on that, will be CRA Facade Grant. CRA Facade Grant has always been there since CRA started, but we were not able to materialize those things. Now we are moving forward to, do you have questions? Okay. So basically CRA Facade Grant is designed to incentivize the brick and mortar businesses in the CRA district to revitalize their buildings, making it more welcoming and desirable.
Has anybody yet to take advantage of that program?
Not yet, sir, not yet. But we are changing kind of our way of looking into facade grant, rather than saying like it is focused on all the areas. We will go year-wise with, okay, 2025 is just signage year. So we will get the signage company, get a good signage for the whole downtown, and we will go ahead and talk to our business and see what's going on there. Maybe canopy will be a good idea. So we are going step by step on that, rather than having a full-blown CRA facade grant where people don't understand what actually it means. So we will, and this time me and Chelsea thought we will just go to each businesses and we will talk to each one of them to make sure that they understand. Third one is downtown strategy. This was a consultant we use, and I have a 10-minute presentation of them also. We started a visioning project with them in March, and then in July they came down and did a good workshop with the stakeholders. They did a very amazing market analysis and provided us a recommendation. This afternoon we had another meeting where they were talking about implementation. which we have to think about whether we will be working with them on implementation or not.
We will present the plan that
Yes.
they've presented to the commission for adoption with an implementation plan.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Martin?
Is this the group that was, had a rendering for a stage down there? I think they were UF students or something like that?
No,
Different group.
those were UF students, but this were the people who came in July as team, and they walked with us in the downtown.
They've been here 2 or 3 times.
Oh,
Yes.
was Jen Garrett part of that?
Jen was there, yes.
She was there. She wasn't part of the team.
So the
Yes.
group that had the rendering for the art is,
Is a
Gone.
different group, yes.
That was just
Those,
one of the
those,
kids.
those were the economic development student from UF who did the art, but I love that art too, so that is one thing which will be there. So, these are their timeline, and as I said, I have another presentation from them, which I will be presenting. And the third one is my favorite one, which is mural project. We will be this year looking for proposals of which wall should we select, what kind of art should go there, and we have 3 members confirmed for the advisory committee. And we already got a grant from Alachua County Art Tag Grant of $2,000. We are approaching a few artists from Gainesville and around this area to see if they fit our budget and their art is what our city require, like.
Can we stop? Can we pause there for a second? So I think it's time now that we got an employee, that we rethink the way that we're doing this, because nobody's taking advantage of the facade grants. They're too onerous. It's not enough money. They're not jumping through it. And what I've heard this body say over and over is, I want the awnings, I want to pressure wash and clean up the buildings. I was looking at the lights, and we've got the lights strung up through some trees up there and around the grass at the top, right? And so what I would say is, instead of having these projects, why don't we get all of the owners of the buildings, the people who own them, because that's the biggest misconception, is everybody thinks we own all those buildings. Let's get them all in a room and let them have some sort of contract that says, I authorize the city to pressure wash the buildings. I don't think we can add the murals, because I think if I'm the business owner, I wouldn't just give somebody the right to go paint whatever you want. But I think I wouldn't have heartache about the city putting some new awnings. I wouldn't have heartache about cleaning up. And that's what we want out of these facades grants. And now all we're saying is, hey, if you give us the right to just go do these, we'll just decide how much it costs and we'll plug it off. It may take us 1, 2, 3 years, but that seems to me like a more comprehensive approach than waiting for each individual business to come to us, fill out the paperwork. They get $5,000 for an $8,000 awning. Maybe we just pay the $8,000, but we just do 1 or 2 a year. What do you think? I just think we got to re-envision. It's been 3 years now. We've been trying to get this done, and we can't get it done
Then why should we?
because it looks terrible.
yeah,
It's their business.
But that's what this is for.
Yeah. Commissioner Martin?
Sure. I mean, the downtown could definitely use an improvement as far as the look goes. There's no doubt about that. Yes, it is their buildings, and maybe maybe we don't need to be attaching to the buildings, but the public space above the sidewalk, the airspace is, I guess, where my head is going. Maybe it's poles with the awnings like we saw in the Easton presentation or something. Can't imagine that they'd be too terribly expensive. I agree with you on the mural, unless they're willing to sign off and be, a signature to the agreement of allowing that to be done. And it seems to me when Commissioner Coleman had his soft wash business, the issue with those historic buildings is an integrity problem and not wanting to accept liability for that, but maybe he can speak to that, or if you already know what that is. But I feel like there's I like the idea of the trees, but the trees are ugly to me. They've become ugly. I'm not saying that, and I mean, to some extent, they also inhibit being able to see the buildings. I think the spirit of the trees was great, is great, and as time has gone on, that just, as we say, that didn't age very well, in my opinion. I don't think that's keeping people from coming down here. I think just the overall fit, feel, function is preventing some of that. But, I mean, they're largely filled. I mean, there's things going on down there. So that's my 2 cents.
Am I right that the FDOT owns all the way up to the buildings? They own the sidewalks? Do we own some?
Generally, no, we don't have any ownership in there.
Right.
It's either FDOT or the
Are
property
the,
owner.
but the most of the sidewalk is owned, and when the two-way pairs come through, the trees are all coming out. Again, you guys have already voted on that new landscaping package. You've negotiated that. And that's why I would, at this point, I'd cancel the mural program and pull that funding into the awnings and the pressure washing, and once we get everything cleaned up and shining, then we can go back and we can think about painting. But I'm ready to see.
More uniform if just all the awnings came off.
Yeah, I actually kind of like the idea. I was thinking we should just talk to the state and say, what if we just took all the awnings off and then we build the up high? Because what people want is shade and rain cover, right? And these awnings, they end up looking like that after a while. And that way they...
Not that the shade is long at some point.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents is let's just re-envision the way we're doing this, because the facade grant's not working. Nobody's going after it.
No, we've swung and missed.
Yeah. So let's just put them all together in a room and say, this is what we want to do, and we'll pay for it. It's not a program of matching. We'll pay for it. We're not going to pay for it all in the first year, but we'll pay for it out of the funding that is specifically designated to address areas of blight. And it may be, one side of the road one year gets pressure washed and all the grass pulled out of it, and next side the other year, right? But that way we have the legal right to go and address it and just do it. Just get her done.
Pay for out of the grant?
Pay for out of the CRA.
CRA.
Which is, the whole reason that's there is to address areas of blight, so we've been trying to piecemeal and do a bunch of different programs, but what I keep hearing is the buildings, pressure wash buildings.
Mr. Mayor, all you gotta do is walk up down the road. The bricks are, one more winter, nice rain, nice freeze, the bricks are gonna start coming off. I do it every morning, walk up and down. It's been this way, it don't look like it's ever gonna change, but it needs to be done.
Right. And I get it from their perspective, it's hugely expensive, it's hard, but that's why the CRA is for that, right? So those 2 things, pressure washing, cleaning up, getting rid of the awnings.
Some of the brick and mortar, I don't know, because all the historic stuff, Jen Garrett actually looked at it one time, and, there's been some plans, looked at stuff, and she's willing to help.
Yeah.
But there's something to do with them facing and that mortar,
Right.
and it's more than just pressure washing, getting it
Right.
done. There's some loose stuff.
It's not
Pressure washer in case of plexiglass.
Okay,
Anyway, good. I'm
So,
good with it.
revision our strategy.
definitely. And just to update on that, Chelsea and me, both of us are meeting with Newberry Main Street frequently. We have a meeting on 19th with the whole Main Street Newberry, and then we will propose the idea and we will go from there. We are planning to have more collaboration with them because we need all the business owners with us on this program. So we will be working with them. So, but that's a very great idea on facade program. We will see, it's written new vision. So we will try to work on that, and downtown strategy actually provided us some great ideas. I will be presenting that very soon in their presentation. Apart from that, yes, farmers market and downtown beautification is something which we are looking for, but I think I already got some good ideas from the board. Wayfinding is also interesting thing we can work on, and branding. So we will be working for all those things in the 2025. This is just what is farmers market, and this is how can we miss our Christmas decoration, which is also from CRF fund. So they were making it, and there is a Grinch inside if you guys can see it. I just took the picture when they were in action. So that's my presentation. I'm here for any questions.
Any other feedback? Re-envision our strategy, come back to us with very pointed focus, and let's start. I don't want to be here in the end of 25 and not see one more facade being fixed, right? Okay, where were you going, Ms. Umi? You're on number 2.
Another round of presentation.
You're the best looking ranch green we've ever seen up here. Yeah.
Okay, so this is my next presentation. This is from our partners who did 5-year strategic action plan for City of Newberry. This is just a presentation. We will come back again with their implementation plan and approval of if we want to go for the implementation. So they are still working on the proposal for that. So, and she has pointer for me what to say in each. So this is basically a 5-year action plan and not a traditional master plan. It's or a strategic designing plan, visioning plan. It's more about action oriented. That's what they are very focused on. It's an action oriented plan. This is their team. Jen came down here in July, and I think meet with all of you here. This is their timeline and scope. They started with some visioning and then move forward from there.
What kind of money are we paying these people?
I think the first round of payment was, Dallas is not here.
I thought we got a grant for,
It
was
was
a matching kind of a
Yes,
deal.
there was a matching grant.
Yeah.
I
don't know the whole thing,
I
but I
can
think there was
confirm with, because it was before I came in.
We're using on these, I know enough people here got visions.
Yeah.
Look at the grass growing out of the brick right
They got a high def picture. Go ahead.
Okay, so the partnership started in March. There was a strategic visiting workshop in July. In August, they did the market analysis and then the strategic plan discussion. Some of the very interesting thing they contributed is community input on why they come to downtown and what are some of the reasons why they don't come to downtown. So frequent visits, but mixed perception was there. There was lack of variety of businesses. That was one of the things which came up. Parking and accessibility, and that we all have always discussed. Limited business hours, need for extended hours. These were like some of the main community input. Then they did one more very interesting study called 10-minute drive time, and then tried to focus on what kind of businesses we require for our city. Walkability assessment shows that we are in 63 percentile, which is around somewhat walkable, not all walkable here. And then they have like 4 focus areas: policy, administration, design, tourism, and economic vitality. They, with the strategies, projects, and recommendation for each focus area. I will skip all these things and go straight to the first focus area, which is policy and administration. And very interestingly, when they were talking about it, because they always talk about incremental development, like we will go step by step on that. And some of the policy and administrative discussion which they suggested, the city is already adopting it. Like we have a full-time person who does the CRA work. We have started working on revisiting the facade grant. We have already started discussing why we have to move forward to make downtown more public space. And so we are right now talking about those things. So in one sense, it's a good idea that we got that pointer and we know we are almost there. Shared use parking agreement, this is one which is very interesting, came out from there, and Chelsea and I are looking to make an ordinance very soon on, or some kind of deed with the nearby, because with hedges coming here, they have a shared parking agreement with Lions Club, and so if we have more shared parking agreement with different owners here, we will have less parking problem in here. So this was a good suggestion. Design-wise, again, they have all those ideas about murals, how to get the street look prettier, what are some of the aspects we can do in like 1906 building and have a mural there, have a street lighting in 254th Street. And those were some of the things which even the city was thinking about, like this, having a design space with some lightings to have people come and gather. That will make our city more visible and more people will come in even in the night. Right now it's looking very pretty with all the Christmas lighting, but as soon as Christmas goes away, it's a dark place. So rather than having just...
You just won't let any dump trucks drive down there.
Your most,
No, that was a little, Greg Parrish's.
Another suggestion they said is about the street paintings, but I think that is kind of not possible because this is our FDOT, and FDOT needs certain restriction on painting, so we might not be able to achieve on the main roads, but Ladders Road, we can think about doing something like this. The last suggestion, the last focus was tourism and promotion, where they talked about installing custom street light banner throughout downtown, having the pathfinders, like wayfinders in this temporary installation of selfie station. And this, I think, was a very interesting one, which they said, like, if we can have like some kind of selfie station there, people will come and take selfies there.
I mean, I see that idea all over in cities. People have something, you know, that, and in my mind, I don't even know that I count that as a mural, but I think that's a good idea.
Like just having the name of the city there to have people come in. So that was one of their ideas. And then finally, economic vitality, and that was where they suggested creating a business recruitment brochure or package for people to come and start there. So for that, how can we have a readiness to our downtown, like readiness of the place where people can come and quickly start, so rather than having step by step. So we have already started working on creating one where they have all the things what you need to start a business here. So something like that will be a fresh start in 2025 for us. And I think that's about this presentation.
Two-story Jason Aldean bar outside me.
Problem is that chairs go flying off.
They didn't get them.
They did when,
I mean, my feedback to this company would be there's some good ideas there, but I didn't really see any ideas that were so specific to Newberry that they couldn't be cookie cutter and placed down anywhere else. And that was what I was really hoping to come out of our focus sessions and visioning sessions, was what does Newberry need to do? And all of that, good ideas, but they kind of seemed pretty cookie cutter, right? So if they could, you know, go back, I know we've probably already paid them and they're gone, but, you know, this, and again, not to harp on the font, right, but I can't read all of this. And,
I know.
And telling me, you know, you need vibrant downtown, well, that's what I told them. Like, how do we make a vibrant downtown? And we've got the idea for the lights across the road. We had the idea for, well, I mean, most of what's in here, these guys have already been pitching for 2 or 3 years. So it's, at this point, it's not what do we need to do, it's how do we start doing it, right? So that's what I wanted to focus. And when we talked about the parking, that was the workshop that came out of. And that was the thing that the business owners downtown, that was what they spent 50% of the time talking about, right? It wasn't about everything else. It was, great, where does everybody park? So any more questions? It's getting late. All right. Are you doing the number 3? You are.
Yes,
You're a busy
just,
woman.
a quick one. There is a big report there which they have submitted, which we are reviewing, and it has like some aspect with the case study of how it can be implemented and using the case study of Newberry. So I will be sharing that with the board once we get our review done.
Okay.
And,
Just don't spend any more money.
oh, no.
Yeah.
We're not.
All right.
Unless we all agree we will not spend.
Number
Number 3.
Are we on, did we ever do the sidewalk
The
update?
sidewalk we have to,
Northwest Third Avenue?
I can give that update.
Sure.
that's the presentation by Rance, I think.
That was,
Is it in there? Is it in the slide deck?
Yeah.
Northwest Third was in what, the visioning session people did?
No,
Well, that was in the updates in
no,
number
but there
one.
is one more
So
presentation.
that was why I was asking if we had went from 1 to 2, because in 1 there was a sidewalk. I didn't know if that was, sorry. I think we went from 1 to 3.
Okay.
And maybe we've hit enough of sidewalks, but if there's something specific about the Northwest Third Avenue along, and the upcoming one along 258th, do you have it in your head, Mike? Can you just give us the overview of it?
The overview was to advise the commission that we've completed that project. It was an extensive, it goes for half a mile, probably in length. And
It's all right, Mike's got it, Ms. Uma.
we got a very favorable bid from a contractor, really the most economical unit cost for concrete that we'd seen in a really long time. And so we staked the right-of-way, which was probably more challenging than you would have thought. Normally, you think, okay, it's a 20-foot wide road and a 50-foot right-of-way, so there's 15 feet on either side. Not even close for Northwest Third. The road was pushed all the way to one side of the right-of-way, and we own, the city's right-of-way extends well up into people's yards. A little bit of controversy there, trying to get that sidewalk built in. The Huey property was one of those that sidewalk got pushed well into their yard, and that they were pretty excited about it when they saw us form it up. But we constructed from Lois Fort Park west all the way to Northwest 266th Street, and got that completed. It's probably about 8 months ago that project was completed. So one sidewalk project.
Check that
under our
box.
belt.
I love it. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. That moves us to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published? Have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's going to move us to item 5. Mike's right in the right position. Seaboard Drive land acquisition. Tim, were you here at this meeting?
You pushed me all the way back to.
Well, this is to fund it out of the CRA now. So the commission. But let's
Mr.
listen.
Mayor,
to
I presented this to the city commission 2 weeks ago. No.
He's kidding.
I asked you guys to fake it last time. I don't know what's going on with my PowerPoints, but this is 2 meetings in a row that every PowerPoint that I've developed has imploded. So
we'll get IT on your computer.
So I was going to be witty and say that I presented it to the city commission and they unanimously approved it, but this is a tougher audience, so we're hoping that we get support. But Mr. Mayor, just a reminder to the board that there's a property at Southwest Third and Seaboard Drive that is owned by Mr. Estes. It's a half-acre parcel, and we had it appraised, and he is willing to sell it for 10% more than the appraised cost. It was appraised for $100,000. He agreed to a sales price of $101,000. We have funding in the CRA. Potential uses for the property are many, including stormwater and parking and any other amenity that the city commission or the CRA.
A sand bath. A sand bath is very popular these days. You have sand spouting, spewing. Kids love it.
So the city commission approved acquisition of the property. We have scheduled tentatively closing about 75 days out, working with the city attorney's property, and if the CRA board authorizes us, we'll move forward.
All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to citizen comment. Any members of the public wish to speak tonight? You have the opportunity to do so. 5 minutes, all to yourself, just you and the commission. Seeing none, Executive Director.
Go get it,
Who's the Executive
Mr.
Director?
Mayor, I found my list. but I'm going to spare the board from me going back through it. If there's anything that I missed in the previous meeting, I will send you an email tomorrow. That
All right.
concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. CRA attorney? All right, CRA board member Coleman?
I've got about 4 things.
CRA board member Clark? Board member Farnsworth?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Board member Martin?
See you next Monday.
Yeah, if it wasn't for see you next Monday, I'd be saying have a happy new year because this is our last official commission meeting, last official CRA meeting. I appreciate everyone's time. We'll see you next Monday. Who is in charge of the CRA? Who is running the agendas and everything for the CRA? Is that you? Is
You
that the
can
Zoom?
direct
Is
it
that
at me.
you? Okay. Can we put on a calendar a regular scheduled agenda review before, like we do for the P&Z? 4 days before. Let's have that kind of review.